Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tempe City Council regular council meeting. Item number 1 is call to order. Council meetings can be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/tempe11. Members of the public may also attend the meeting virtually through Microsoft Teams. Just a quick note, too, if you're here to speak on the General Plan 2050, please know that you're going to have an opportunity to speak later on in the agenda when I introduce that item, which is item 8C2 later on the agenda. The City Council and I need to complete the other items of business leading up to agenda item 8C2, just so we appreciate your patience. But if you wish to speak on the General Plan 2050 and you haven't filled out a speaker card yet, please make sure to check in at the table at the back and submit your completed card prior to the agenda item coming forward. And once again, I'll call your name when it is your turn for public comment. With that said, I'd like to invite everyone who's able to join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Tonight's agenda has a number of items that the City Council must consider in order to conduct city business. Guidelines for conduct at City Council meetings are on the table near the entrance for those in attendance at tonight's meeting. We will now play a video with the proper protocol for ensuring the appropriate conduct at City Council meetings.
The City of Tempe welcomes public comment at this time. Disruptive behavior will not be allowed. Continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. We need to be able to hear everyone in the room. Behavior that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of any city council meeting is not helpful and is not permitted. This includes behavior both inside and outside of the council chambers. Should individuals inside the council chambers become disruptive so that city business is not able to be conducted, the mayor will first ask that the individuals allow city business to be completed. There will be time for public comment during the call to the audience portion of the meeting. If no cooperation, the mayor will issue a verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is still no cooperation, the mayor will issue a second verbal warning and let them know that the continued disruptive behavior will lead to removal from the council chambers. If there is no cooperation after asking and 2 verbal warnings, then the mayor will ask security officers to remove only those individuals who are causing the disruption. Security personnel should not engage in any way, but only escort them from the council chambers. If individuals refuse to leave, security personnel shall warn them that they are trespassing and that the next step will be arrest by a Tempe police officer. Tempe officers may have to arrest if individuals refuse to leave. Charges for trespass and disorderly conduct may apply, as well as other charges. Should anyone be asked to be removed, the mayor will recess the meeting.
Thank you so much. And now for a reading of the City of Tempe's Land Acknowledgement Statement.
Thank you, Mayor. We wish to acknowledge that Tempe is the homeland of the native people who have inhabited this landscape since time immemorial. These ancestral lands of the O'odham, known as the Pima, Peeposh, known as the Maricopa, and their ancestors extend far beyond our city. This land continues to be spiritually connected to the O'odham of the Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian Community, and Gila River Indian Community. We accept the responsibility of stewarding those places and solemnly pledge to consider this commitment in every action.
Thank you, Councilmember Shin. And next up, I'm going to keep with you here for the meeting minutes.
Great, thank you. I would like to submit for approval item 4A1.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Chin and seconded by Councilmember Garlett. Please vote. Vice Mayor Adams, voice vote. Aye. And that item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. Next up, Councilmember Chin.
Mayor, I would like to submit for acceptance items 4B1 through 4B7.
It's been moved by Councilmember Chin. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Councilmember Hodge. Please vote. And that item also passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. Next up, mayor's reports and announcements. I don't have any this evening. Madam City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. That brings us to item number 6, which is public appearances. According to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the City Council may only discuss matters listed elsewhere on this agenda for discussion and legal action. The purpose of the open call to the public is to allow individuals to address the City Council on any issue within the jurisdiction of the City Council. No person shall speak more than once, and there is a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers present at the podium must state their name and city of residence and provide a speaker card. Members of the public shall refrain from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks and from becoming boisterous while addressing the City Council or while attending the meeting. Speakers will be taken first come, first serve in the order in which the cards are received. Speakers' visual aids and appearances by phone or recordings are not allowed. Council members are prohibited by state law from taking action on, commenting, or discussing a matter raised by a member of the public, even if asked to do so by a member of the public, so long as the subject discussed by the speaker is not listed as a specific agenda item for council's consideration for discussion and legal action. At the conclusion of public appearances, the council may ask the city manager to review a matter or place a matter on a future agenda. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and just once again go with the speaker cards that were not related to the General Plan 2050, but make sure that I've got your cards here in order. And if you have not submitted a card for the General Plan, please once again make sure you do so at that back table, and I'll make sure to call your name. But for the items that are outside of that agenda item, I'm going to first start here with Tim Palmer. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, sorry to interrupt, but it seems that we're having some technical difficulties. If we could take a little break. It seems like we are no longer transmitting via Teams.
Oh, okay.
So if we could give me like 2 minutes, I'll go run to the back.
Okay. Mr. Palmer, if you wouldn't mind, take a seat up front here, and we're going to adjourn for a couple of minutes and check on the technology. Okay, we're going to go ahead and restart the meeting. The technological issues have been addressed. Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate that. And I'm going to go back here to Tim Palmer, who's going to be our first speaker this evening. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tim Palmer, a 60-year resident of Tempe since 1963. But in my opinion, longevity does not seem to account for much in Tempe any longer. I usually behave at these types of events, but I don't think I am tonight. It's unfortunate that Councilmember Keating's not here to hear all these remarks tonight from myself and everybody behind me. Thank goodness we have a new city manager, Rosa. Rosa needs all the luck in the world because of the tasks that lie ahead at her desk. It will take her deep strength and the strength of her staff to deal with all these messes. But Rosa can do it, and I plan to support you every step of the way. I'm here tonight not for the 2050 general plan, which some should see as a vision, but others will see as an obstacle to battle. I'm here to speak about a vision in general. As we enter an uncomfortable municipal election year, I thought I should remind you seven that vision is the name of the game, not deal makings. Elections are about vision, not deal makings. Just a reminder, you all have to live with your choices too. You can't run and hide. We're all watching. I always ask myself, is Tempe Mayberry? Or is Tempe, I always ask myself, is Tempe Mayberry or is Tempe not Mayberry? Or is Tempe Mayberry with a little New York City mixed in? I hate to tell folks, but it's both, and development is a reality. Residents want compromise, and that's what we deserve, and that's what we should be delivered. Councilmember Navarro? You met with the residents of Dromedary neighborhood approximately 10 years ago. You wanted to discuss your vision for Mill Avenue from the US 60 to downtown Tempe as the gateway to Tempe. Unfortunately, you seem to have abandoned that idea. Nothing is being done in the area that you advocated for, and yet you want to be reelected. Why? We're now seeing action for the Mill Avenue underpass adjacent to Tempe High School for a proposed beautiful new redesigned vision. However, might I add, at a paltry sum of $400,000 in comparison to the $22 million that's being spent on the downtown Tempe district. Shame on that allocation, Councilmember Navarro. Where is the new vision that you wanted for Mill Avenue that you spoke of 10 years ago? Mill Avenue from the US 60 to Apache Boulevard needs a branding and theming cohesion, and you have failed in that discussion. Councilmember Keating, again, you're not here, you had a vision for the proposed Tempe Maker District, and nothing has come to pass on that. You hide in every single dark corner available, and yet the vision seems over. Shame on you, yet you want to be reelected. Why?
That's why you take another 15 seconds. Then
Okay. Councilmember Garland, you're the biggest disappointment. You promised me you would lead the charge on traffic safety, and you've abandoned that charge. In fact, the entire council has abandoned traffic safety, which is my single largest passion, yet some of you want to be reelected. Why? President Franklin Roosevelt held fireside chats starting in 1933 with America to explain his vision for our country in crisis. Can you seven find a way to do the same?
Okay, that's fine.
Explain your visions, not your deals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Ephraim McLaughlin. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Ephraim McLaughlin, and when I speak, I get a little bit nervous. But today, I'm going to talk about Jennifer Adams. I know that most of you guys are Democrats, and I'm Republican, but I found something that interested me in the beginning with Jennifer Adams, but she didn't go with the stuff that she said she was going to go with. So I'm going to just play a clip of what she said that she was going to do.
Just really quickly,
On my phone,
are we allowed to, you're not allowed to play video or audio clips,
No,
correct? Is that?
No, you have the ability to speak for 3 minutes is what you have.
Well, this is from her own words, from her own, and I'm just trying to explain what she promised when she campaigned, but I can't.
Paraphrase that.
Well, anyways, all right. When she ran, she said that she was gonna, she said that there was a 7-year, before that there was a 7-year program where the streets would be done and fixed. And she campaigned on that she was gonna bring the idea back to the city council to get it done, which I haven't seen any of that being proposed. And then the other thing was, she had said that she was going to work on lowering the water rates. And she was doing it because of her community, because the water rates were too high and the tiered water rate system was out of control. And I saw that for myself. But then she talked about how the city council votes 7-0 practically all the time. And as her being on the council, she's been voting 7-0 with you guys all the time, pretty much. I haven't seen any diversity in thought. You mean it might be diversity in people, but not actual diversity in thought. It's all the same, being controlled. I would like to see that being done, lowering the water rates like she promised. And then she voted to raise the water rates. No, I believe that's what happened. She had voted yes, unless I'm wrong. But she still has a chance to redeem herself. And I know she can't respond, but hopefully things can change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That ends public appearances. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in the audience on any item, whatever, except for the General Plan 2050, which is going to come later on in the program? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close that section of the meeting and move on to item number 7, which is the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda will be considered as a group and will be enacted with one motion by the City Council unless an item is removed for separate consideration. Members of the public may remove public hearing items for separate consideration. Public hearing items are designated as public hearing item at the beginning of the item title. Council members may remove any item for separate consideration or to declare a conflict. If a council member would like to declare a conflict at this time, the city clerk will provide the council member with a disclosure form. If you wish to speak on a public hearing item, please fill out a speaker card and submit your completed card to the city clerk prior to the agenda item coming forward for council discussion. I will call your name when it is your turn for public comment. This evening, the consent agenda is listed as miscellaneous items 7A1 through 7A6, awards of bids and contracts, items 7B1 through 7B8, and resolutions, items 7C1 through 7C8, with the exception of item 7A3, which was withdrawn at the request of the applicant. Once again, any agenda item marked as public hearing item can be removed by a member of the public for separate consideration. If anyone would like to have a public hearing item removed, please get my attention now. All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, were there any comments received from the public wishing to address the City Council on a consent agenda public hearing item?
Nothing additional. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Council, any other agenda items that you'd like to have removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration? All right. Seeing none, then I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7A3, which was withdrawn at the request of the applicant, and any other items that have been pulled, which were none. And I got a motion from Councilmember Navarro and a second from Councilmember Chin. Please vote. Nope. All right, and that item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. That moves us to item number 8, which is the non-consent agenda. All items listed on the non-consent agenda will be considered separately. Agenda items scheduled for introduction and first public hearing will be heard but will not be voted upon at this meeting. Agenda items scheduled for second public hearing and final adoption will be voted upon tonight. Council members who may have a conflict of interest may abstain from voting on a matter, and the city clerk will provide the council members with the disclosure form at this time. First item under the section is 8A1, which is to approve the utilization of one-year State of Arizona contracts with Fischl Company, Graybar Electric Incorporated, Level 7 Technologies LLC, Aspen Technologies, and Premise One Incorporated for data and telecommunications cabling, fiber optic installation, and repair services in city buildings and streets in alignment with the capital improvement plans for traffic, sewer, and water projects. Council, any comments or discussion? Moved by Councilmember Hodge, seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote. And that item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. Next item under the section is 8A2, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign Amendment 1 to an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Public Transportation Authority for the purchase and supply of transit services for fiscal year 2023-24.
So moved.
Been moved by Vice Mayor Adams, seconded by Councilmember Garland. Please vote.
Aye.
And that item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. The next item under the section is 8A3, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign Amendment 1 to an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Public Transportation Authority for the lease of the East Valley Bus Operations and Maintenance Facility. Been moved by Vice Mayor Adams. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Hodge. Please vote. That item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. Next up is 8A4, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign Operations Funding Agreement number 16 with Valley Metro Rail Incorporated for the purchase and supply of light rail and streetcar transit services. It's been moved by Vice Mayor Adams, seconded by Councilmember Garland. Please vote. That item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. The next item under the section is 8A5, which is to award a construction contract to Desert Services International Incorporated for the impound vehicle storage facility Green Tree and 52nd Project located at 1733 West Green Tree Drive. Any comments or discussion? Been moved by Councilmember Hodge, seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote. That item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. The last item under the section is 8A6, which is to award a professional services contract to Kitchell CEM Incorporated for the Tempe Municipal Operations Center Phase 2 Construction Management Project. Any comments or discussion? Been moved by Vice Mayor Adams. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Navarro. Please vote. That item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. The next section on the non-consent agenda is ordinances and items for introduction and first hearing. These items will be read and introduced tonight, but no votes will be taken. The second hearing and vote for these items is scheduled for September 7th, 2023. First item under the section is 8B1, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the abandonment and sale of a portion of alley adjacent to the property located at 815 South Roosevelt Street near the intersection of West University Drive and South Wilson Street. This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the City Council on this item? If so, please get my attention. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, any comments or discussion? All right, seeing none, once again, we'll reiterate the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for September 7th, 2023. The last item under the section is 8B2, which is to introduce and hold the first public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the abandonment and sale of a portion of alley adjacent to the property located at 816 South Wilson Street near the intersection of West University Drive and South Wilson Street. Once again, this is also a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council? If so, please get my attention. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Council, any comments or discussion? All right, hearing none, the second and final public hearing on this item is scheduled for September 7th, 2023. Next up, 8C, ordinances and items for second hearing and final adoption. These items have had prior hearings and votes will be taken this evening. First item under the section is 8C1, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt an ordinance authorizing the abandonment of portions of alley right-of-way lying east of South Industrial Drive in the southwest quarter of Section 13, Township 1, North Range 4 East, Gila and Salt River Base, and Meridian, Maricopa County, Arizona. This is also a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the council on this item? If so, please get my attention. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Council members, any comments or discussion? It's been moved by Councilmember Hodge. Do I have a second? Seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. Please vote. That item passes 6-0 with Councilmember Keating absent. The last item under the section is 8C2, which is to hold the second and final public hearing to adopt a resolution authorizing the approval of Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050 and update to the General Plan 2040. The applicant is the City of Tempe. Just once again, want to note the resolution authorizing the general plan amendment requires at least a 2/3 City Council majority vote for approval, which is 5 out of 7, and even without Councilmember Keating, it would still be 5 out of 6 members for approval. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and call upon Mbika Adekari and Jacob Payne for an updated presentation on the General Plan 2050.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Once again, for the record, my name is Mbika Adekari, Principal Planner, Community Development, and with me is Jacob Payne, Senior Planner, Community Development. We have a very brief presentation for you because we did talk a little more detail on the first hearing. So today I'm going to give you a little bit of the overview of the comments that were given on the 10th, and also just one slide of a general plan refresher. And then there are some requests for revisions that the council had given us some directions. We'll talk about that. And then we're also asked to make an assessment about one particular property in the CRA. We'll give you our recommendations on that one. And then also anything that we've heard since the first hearing, we want to give you a quick summary of the public comments that have been received by email and other means, and then we'll talk about the next steps. So I know that the general plan, we've talked right from the beginning, the last 16, 17 months, what it is. But I have one slide here because we've been getting a lot of comments, and sometimes there's a confusion among the residents and the citizens on what the general plan can do and what it cannot do. So it has some limits and purpose and power. The general plan is a long-term vision of the city for land use and planning. It provides forward-looking policies, objectives, and strategies. The land use and residential density map supports the city's vision for accommodating changes. Anything that we plan in the future, this is the guide that is provided by the general plan. The general plan land use designation does not prescribe entitlement or permit development on a site. So sometimes we get some comments from the citizens who may sometimes be a little confused on this one. And the property owners can only develop and build as permitted by the zoning on the site. So general plan is kind of irrelevant on that perspective. And the land use and density designations are referenced to support or not support a rezoning application that comes forward later on. The property owners can apply to amend the general plan land use and residential density designation. In other words, the general plan is a living document. It's updated every 10 years. And within that 10 years, we get lots of amendments. Actually, in the last 10 years, we had something like 33 different amendments that were approved. And lastly, the general plan does not change the zoning on the land and other regulation related to development. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm not going to read all these comments because you heard all these comments 2 weeks ago on the 10th, but I wanted to give you a synopsis of what people told at that meeting and how that impacted on how we are moving forward with the general plan. Lots of people asked for more residential density than is proposed in the plan, and they thought it will help increase the supply of housing. And there were some individuals who asked us to keep the density level of May 5th, which was the pretty high density that we had to scale down, and some of them wanted to continue that. But on the other hand, there were some people who wanted the density to be less than what is shown in the draft. So it's always a balancing act for the staff. We hear both sides of the ideas, but many commented that the density actually helps in terms of the urban culture and also the businesses. And some thought that additional density can compromise the ability of the infrastructure to support that particular type of density. And then there were also some individuals who asked us to bring the density level to General Plan 2040.
I think there might be some delay. There you go.
Okay. We were also asked to remove the cultural resources area designation from some of the locations by some individual property owners on the Maple Street and Gage Edison, and also on the 700 block between McKinney and Mitchell Drive. But some other individuals actually asked to decrease the CRA designation. Some asked to increase the CRA designation. Again, it's a balancing act that you'll see in the plan. Then there was a request to increase the density in the area between Bendwas, McKellips Road, McClintock Drive, and Loop 202, which you'll see later on that we have a recommendation to that one. The Tempe Bicycle Action Group supported the plan. They wrote a letter to that effect. This is all from the 10th. And then there was also discussions about the Daniel Plaza. Some people wanted to increase the density. Some people wanted to decrease the density. Okay. And after that meeting, we continue to get comments, and many of them you probably have seen, and there will be people who will be speaking today. And then some of the comments that we've received after the first hearing is to provide more open spaces, maybe make a study of the demographic in the city so that the planning could be much more data-based, and also adopt International Green Construction Code and make it mandatory. They also asked to prioritize conservation of desert reserves, remove the mixed uses and high density at the Discovery Business Center near the ASU Research Park, and also provide the missing middle housing types in appropriate location. It is a little slow, but it will work. Okay. Some more comments where there is too much cultural resources area in the city, and also there's too much single-family zoning in the city. And then some people asked us to carefully analyze the heat island effects caused by more construction and paving. And then some feel that the city is emphasizing preferences to developers. But some other people think that the transit and density support each other. And then people have asked to build more density, take away the CRA. People have liked the dark sky provisions in the plan. And also, we've also gotten some good words that we've heard the people, and then the plan have many different elements. Next one. Okay, so there are some public requests and revisions for the general plan map and text. Jacob, can you take it?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jacob Payne, Senior Planner. So if you remember, on August 10th, when we came to you last, we made 3 recommendations based on requests for revisions to the land use map that we had received. So those are listed out here. There was the request to remove the mixed-use designation from the Discovery Business Center on Elliott and the 101. So that revision has been made, and that land is designated as industrial, as it were. The request to remove the cultural resource area designation on the 700 block of West 9th Street. This was also done to match what was proposed in what was on the General Plan 2040 as a mixed-use designation there. And then there was the request, as Ambika mentioned, to increase the density in a mixed-use capacity along McClintock, McKellips, the Indian Bend Wash, and north of the 202. And then also in this draft, there are text changes to the public art and cultural amenities chapter, as suggested by Robert Moore, who's been helping us a lot with creating the text and making sure that it's reflective of historical preservation values. So that's the main content that was revised in this chapter. And then, oops, I think I went one too far. There we go. And then also at August 10th, there was another request to assess in the land use map, and that was the assessment of the cultural resource area at the property at 821 South Maple and the north end of the Maple Ash neighborhood. So in the last 2 weeks, we've conducted an analysis as to what that would imply with removing cultural resource area and designating mixed use at different density options. Right now, the staff is not recommending that the cultural resource area be removed due to the location of several historic and historic eligible properties immediately in that area and in the vicinity in the general neighborhood. The character of the Maple Ash neighborhood also has a low density single family character, so we are not recommending a removal of the cultural resource area at this time. And then as far as public comments that we've received since August 10th, here's a list of some of the things that we've received through emails, phone calls in the past 2 weeks. So there's been requests to increase residential densities throughout the city, add more of the urban density, which is 65 dwelling units per acre and higher, provide more density to facilitate increased supply of housing for affordability. We've heard comments that the city, and I guess more appropriately the region, should continue to expand laterally rather than build high-rise buildings that are not as desirable. We've heard to remove mixed-use designations in the Alameda character area as well as the Kiwanis, the Lakes character area. There was a comment about a green belt on Hardy, or between Hardy and Priest on the south bank of the Rio Salado. So we've looked into this, and there is an existing 25 to 50 foot wide walkway and green path that exists there currently. So that's just as a response to that comment that we've received. There's been comments about traffic being difficult and rental prices increasing, and to honor the character area plans that were approved by the council for the 8 areas of the city. So just to kind of give a reiteration that character areas are still being used, and they're still a crucial part of planning efforts in the city, and we do recommend the guidelines that they impose, and always forward that information to developers, but the general plan is a higher level document than those ones and is implemented in a different way. There was also comments to replace the mixed use low moderate designations, which is the 25 unit per acre along Southern Avenue where it was drawn in the most recent draft. There was also comments about allowing for ADUs in single-family homes, increasing open space, and then we've also heard some comments about disagreement with the removal of cultural resource area on the 700 block of West 9th Street. Oops. I know, it takes a little minute, huh? Anyway, it was just the land use map again to just remind us what we're looking at. So this is the current version of it that appears in the document, reflective of those three amendments that we discussed just a moment ago. And then we are also asking for, and this would be part of a motion, I believe, for a small technical correction, and this is in tandem with one of the amendments made to the land use map. With the removal of the mixed use designation from the Discovery Business Campus, we also noticed that in the text, there's an area that refers to promoting mixed use uses in that area as part of its status as an innovation hub in the city. So this correction is shown here on the slide is to just clarify that the residential uses that might be located within this industrial hub are actually located within the ASU Research Park south of Elliott and not within the Discovery Business Campus to the north. With that, I'll hand it back over to Ambika.
Thank you, Jacob. So I just have a couple more slides. Okay, so in summary, this plan has been a community-driven and forward-looking plan. It provides a guidance in appropriately managing anticipated growth that we get from the MAG data. It's built on the themes of sustainability and quality of life goals and addresses climate change, extreme heat mitigation, green infrastructure and construction, consistent with the council performance goals and the ideas. It advances the council priorities and themes, and it builds on and promotes the city's commitment to many initiatives. For example, the 20-minute city, Hometown for All, Climate Action Plan, Urban Forestry Master Plan, Historic Preservation Plan, Affordable Housing Strategy, Parks and Recreation Master Plan, Water Resources Master Plan, Transportation Master Plan, and many others. Okay, and then also about thank you note to the community working group who worked with us for a long time. We had so many meetings with them, like 18 of them, technical advisory group, 70 members out there. All Tempe boards and commission, we went to many of them and we got inputs from all the boards and commission and many of the Tempe partners, nonprofit, school boards, Downtown Tempe Authority, Tempe Chamber of Commerce, Tempe Tourism Council, ASU, Maricopa Association of Government, and many others. Many Tempe neighborhood associations and groups that we had so many meetings with, that they provided input, residents, property owners who have provided passionate comment and helped improve the plan, and interdepartmental staff, almost like 50 of them who contributed to the plan. Now, in terms of the next steps, yeah. Okay. In terms of the next step, once the plan is adopted, we will begin the work on the notification for election for March 12. And then public ratification vote will happen on March 12. That is the end of the presentation. We can always come back, or even now we are here for any questions and comments for anyone.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Ambika. Thank you, Jacob. Council, any comments before we get to the public hearing portion? Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation, and I always promote inclusion, and you really included all of the stakeholders, so I really appreciate it. I know that takes a lot of time, but it's worth it. You get a lot better product when everyone's included, so thanks for your great work and your determination on this, so good job.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Further comments or questions? All right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, that brings me to the public hearing item. We have a number of cards here this evening. The first speaker I've got is David Sokolowski, and I believe he's virtual.
Mr. Sokolowski, you can unmute your mic.
Yep. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
My name is David Sokolowski, and I live in Tempe. The first step to solving the housing crisis is to increase the density in the general plan. We can fight inflation by cutting red tape. At the same time, we can invest in affordable housing while working to legalize inclusionary zoning. Florida recently passed the Live Local Act, and projects that include 40% affordable housing can build to the highest density allowed in the city. I'm still trying to figure out how Florida can do more for affordable housing than Arizona, but we'll probably have to copy their policy. City issues like traffic and neighborhood character doesn't take precedence over issues like homelessness and affordable housing. Adding 5 or 10 minutes to your commute is nothing compared to what we see in the zone. The health and public safety of our city depends on our ability to increase housing production. We know for a fact the housing crisis was caused by a supply problem, and we know that jobs are the demand. So we need to increase housing production until the supply meets the demand and prices remain stable. That doesn't mean the housing crisis is over, but we can prevent more people from falling into poverty. Most of Tempe's land will be developed by 2030, and 70% of Tempe will be renters. By 2040, as much as 80% of Tempe will be renters, and there won't be any land left. It doesn't make sense for us to protect single-family neighborhoods because most of us can't live in them anyway. Tempe can't be inclusive as long as it continues to deny housing opportunities in neighborhoods across the city. I think increasing the density on Southern Ave was a reasonable compromise for my neighborhood. Tempe has more people cost burdened by rent than homeowners in the city, and many of us are very motivated because we don't want to be homeless. We're practically fighting for our lives, and at the very least, we're fighting for our rightful place in the city. We need to plan for workers, college students, people with disabilities, and seniors. We shouldn't vote for a general plan that doesn't fully represent the city. It's not inclusive, it's not balanced, and it's not equitable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Rodney Hugh. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Rodney Hu, Mesa, Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, Yucca Tap Room has been a cornerstone of Tempe for half a century, and our commitment to supporting local arts, live music, and the community has never wavered. Over the years, we've seen the city evolve, and we've actively participated in that journey. About 12 years ago, we supported the idea of a streetcar station at Denell Plaza, connecting it to downtown. Unfortunately, like many city plans, it never materialized. Since then, several projects came and went, stalled by various factors like ownership, city involvement, financing, and the complexities of Denell Plaza and the CC&Rs. Fast forward to 2020, the city entrusted the plaza's property owners with the development baton. There were 2 proposals, one densely focused on housing, the other lacking alignment with the city's goals. However, both fell short because they lacked the support of enough plaza property owners. What many might not know is that Yucca Tap Room initiated the current redevelopment process in collaboration with the city on behalf of other plaza property owners. This was not a city-initiated process. We engaged City Hall, and despite our best efforts, a consensus among the plaza owners remains elusive. But here's the opportunity we can to restore one of Tempe's most historic corners to its former glory and relieve Yucca Tap Room of the burden of sustaining this plaza. We embrace thoughtful change and are actively driving this process with the city as our supportive partner. To make this vision a reality, we've partnered with Desert Viking Development, a local company with 28-year track record of supporting small businesses in the valley. They align perfectly with our goals. With their expertise, we can finally cross this finish line. Our partnership with Desert Viking is a game changer. We've also strategically expanded our property holdings at Denell Plaza, bringing us closer to our vision. This is not just a City Hall-driven effort. It's a partnership that gives us the tools we need. As we move into the design phase with input from stakeholders in the community, we can collectively create something that makes both plaza property owners and the community proud. I understand concerns without drawings and renderings, but we're committed to preserving Denell Plaza's soul while making significant improvements. We aim to reflect Tempe's local identity, embrace adaptive reuse strategies, and maintain the character of the neighborhood. In conclusion, we have a unique opportunity to revitalize Denell Plaza, and the Yucca Tap Room is at the forefront of this effort. With your support and collaboration, we can breathe new life into the iconic retail center with staying true to its roots. Let's make Denell Plaza a testament to Tempe's spirit and character and support the proposed plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hu. The next speaker I have is Lori Foster. Please state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Lori Foster, Tempe, Arizona. Since 1993, Downtown Tempe Authority has been the private nonprofit organization that works in partnership with the City of Tempe to increase the value of downtown Tempe through enhanced management, safety, marketing, promotional services on behalf of DTA members and other downtown stakeholders. Downtown Tempe Authority is pleased to provide a letter of support for urban density as outlined in the General Plan 2050. We need more people to work, visit, and live downtown. Great cities start downtown. No city can succeed without a strong downtown. It is the place where compactness and density bring people, capital, and ideas together in ways that build the economy, opportunity, community, and identity. Despite a relatively small share of the city's overall geography, downtown Tempe delivers a significant economic and community benefit. A dense urban downtown provides social benefits through access to community spaces and public institutions. It acts as a hub for employment, civic engagement, arts and culture, historical heritage, local identity, and financial impact. In short, the proximity and density that downtown creates drives the city around it to thrive. Tempe is well positioned in the region and in the nation to take advantage of the most important trend in economic development, the well-documented preference for urban, walkable, mixed-use environments expressed by millennials, young professionals, and empty nesters. Downtown Tempe offers a mix of amenities, from restaurants to bars to interesting retailers, and a vibrancy that doesn't exist anywhere else in the region. Density and mixed uses are downtown Tempe's biggest competitive advantages. We need more people living downtown to activate downtown Tempe streets, plazas, and parks on a regular basis, curbing opportunities for negative social behaviors to thrive. High urban density creates dynamic and lively environments that spur economic development. Cities that build get the people. When you build more homes in a city, you get more people that can afford to live in your city. Density provides a means to live closer together, share resources, have access to amenities, and save energy. Urban density increases the housing supply in our landlocked city in a smart and affordable way. Travel distances are shorter, opening the area for fewer cars and more alternative travel options like walking, biking, and mass transit like streetcar and light rail. Development and population density creates a more vibrant and livelier downtown, making it more attractive to businesses, residents, and visitors. Downtown Tempe's authority supports the urban density as outlined in the General Plan 2050 and supports overall the goal of increasing economic activity and supporting a more livable downtown. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker is Trevor Barger, and I believe he's virtual. He's not here? Okay. All right, I'll come back around at the end. The next speaker I have is Freddie Alexander. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Freddie Alexander. I'm a resident of Tempe. I am here to voice my support for greater mixed-use development and density. I believe that with the compactness, you open the opportunity for small businesses, as well as meeting our green goal that as a city we, attempt, excuse me, sorry. Give me 1 second.
Take your time, you're good.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that the city has made green goal a huge priority, and this is our opportunity to continue that goal and to further our efforts to make Tempe a green, modern city. High density will bring people in, reduce rent prices, and make it more livable for everyone, while continuing to add to the city character that continues to be brought up. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is David Rojas. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm David Rojas, a lifelong Tempe resident. I went to Rover Elementary, McKimmey Middle School, back when it was called Tempe Academy, and I graduated from McClintock. Councilmember Hodge gave me my diploma. Currently, I'm a student at ASU, and I'm here to talk about, I'm concerned about the revisions made to the Tempe General Plan 2050, specifically removing provisions for higher density, more housing, and so forth in neighborhoods. And I just want to say, main people impacted by that are young people, people who are gonna, you know, live in this city for a long time, and they are going to be impacted by climate change and certainly by higher rents. And so far in these meetings, young people have probably been a little underrepresented, and I just want to ask that the council fully consider all members of the city, including young people, while they're making the decisions, and that they keep the provisions for higher density and mixed-use, walkable neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Brad Peterson. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, council members and fellow residents, and I'm Brad, a senior at ASU and a proud resident of the Maple Ash Farmer Wilson neighborhood. As someone who has not once been confident in the half-decade I've lived here that I will be able to continue to afford to live here, I think the issue of housing deserves all the attention it can get. So I'll mainly be focusing on the development portions of the general plan. Still, I'd like to express my deep appreciation for at least one other part. Community Design Objective 9, which addresses an issue I care deeply about, the impact of artificial lighting on our night skies. We are extremely fortunate in Arizona to still have wild places in which we can experience the kinds of skies our parents and grandparents did. Reducing our impact on the night sky brings with it environmental, health, economic, and aesthetic benefits, not just for Tempe, but for the state as a whole. Very glad to see that included. Now, young and working people like me who appreciate Tempe's uniqueness in the valley and who want better options for moving and living in this city were not well represented in the preliminary outreach meetings, nor consulted on the creation of cultural resource areas in our neighborhoods. Ironically, though CRAs use walkable pre- and post-war areas as their basis, they were created on behalf of a few residents to preserve one kind of culture above all else, car-centrism. In my neighborhood, this designation will not only fail to preserve what culture remains, because it regulates density rather than anything which actually encourages culture or makes our neighborhood special, but it will also prevent further investment in the kinds of people-centered services that do. The Orbit, our free bus service here in Tempe, has been invaluable for connecting me and others to school, downtown, and much more through the light rail. Most cities in the valley have nothing like this because it's rarely economical in low-density suburbs. I love the Orbit, but one thing it and the streetcar cannot do right now with their limited service is save people time. And until Tempe can justify investing in a transit system that is just as convenient as our existing system built for cars, it will continue to be a half measure. As I mentioned earlier, my neighborhood truly is special, in spite of its need for redevelopment. With heat mitigating flood irrigation, its highly walkable layout with abundant tree cover, a unique level of biodiversity which has become increasingly rare in the valley, free transportation, and its extremely valuable proximity to ASU and downtown. Many more people deserve to enjoy these benefits, but high property prices, reaching nearly $2 million on my street, are a significant barrier. The proposed density limits will guarantee that demand for this area is never met, and that only very wealthy and very lucky people will ever be able to enjoy this area near downtown. I'd like to end by addressing the valid concern that more development may further gentrification in Tempe. While this may be true for certain high-rise developments, especially as we don't keep up with demand, permissive zoning strategies in places such as Minneapolis, where rents have risen by only 1% in the same period that rents rose, just like 3 more sentences.
10 more seconds, yeah.
In the same period that rents rose by 31% nationwide, have proven the intuitive theory that more development is effective against this sort of inflation. The alternative, failing to accommodate those who already live here and failing to plan for those who will, is guaranteed to raise prices still, keeping young people like myself from ever owning
and that's time.
any part of this city. I urge you to pass this plan, but I hope
It's
you will
time.
take these into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker I have is Ann Till. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ann Till, Tempe resident. My March 2050 general plan vote will be no. To be a yes, though, the city needs to ensure affordable housing, prioritize neighborhood preservation, provide a collaborative building process, and create mandatory green building code and green space requirements. Policy changes are needed because there is a lack of trust. The plan is okay, but there's a huge problem with implementation. Fantastic people work at our city. I truly know as I interact with so many, but our city feels broken. One, neighborhood preservation. This is so important. All neighborhoods, not just some neighborhoods. We can't trust the city if they won't protect our neighborhood character. Just drive north of the railroad. Neighborhoods are in distress. The vision is torn down and boarded up homes. Perhaps the city sees growth, but residents don't see it that way. Entire neighborhood streets have been replaced. Tempe has seen massive housing increases, but unaffordable, even with a decent salary. Through neighborhood was affordable housing with multi-generational Tempe families. These homes are disappearing along with families. The $600,000 condo that replaced the home is more costly than the single home. Do they thank the city for new housing that they can't afford? The city states that high-density buildings along major streets protects single-family neighborhoods. How are we to believe this when it is obviously not the case north of the railroad and west of ASU? Odds are against residents and in favor of investors who can purchase our homes and slowly tear them down. There should be neighborhood sign off on that. So there's ways to add housing in neighborhoods without destroying character. Collaboration, Donnell Plaza. Alameda residents repeatedly ask for lower density and to maintain the arts and culture character. The city won't reduce density, so it had better not fail the vision. This is the city's opportunity to create a model for what neighborhood city contractor collaboration could look like and then apply it to all future projects. Collaboration starts at the contract or concept stage. Late postcards are not enough. Third, green space and building codes are critical with climate change. It is essential to reduce temperatures or else it's just gonna be too hot to live here. Hot strip mall parking lots need reimagining, but must be affordable. These often local businesses make Tempe great. Alameda has mostly full strip malls with thriving businesses within walking, biking distance from residents. We are a 20-minute city already in Alameda. And quickly, let's see.
I give you another 15 seconds. Keep going.
Yeah, Tempe needs to ensure home ownership opportunities, not just single-family housing, because those fix housing costs, so residents are not at the mercy of landlords who have increased rents doubled, so thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Nicholas Weller. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Nicholas Weller. I'm a Tempe resident, and I'm here to express my support for the General Plan 2050. I want to spend some time addressing some of the reasons I think many of my very well-intentioned neighbors bring to oppose the plan, particularly the density and additional housing that might come with it. The first goes something like this. We don't really know how many people are going to move here in the future, so why do we need to build more housing now? And I think we can all look around and see that we already have a housing crisis. We already have many people facing affordability challenges dealing with their rent or finding a home to own. And we have more and more people dealing with homelessness and housing insecurity. We need to build more, we know we need to build more housing already, and the general plan hopefully will make it easier for us to build housing of all types in Tempe. The second reason goes something often discusses things like short-term rentals and private equity firms that are driving up the prices of homes in Tempe. I'm sympathetic to this. I don't want hedge funds buying up a bunch of homes in Tempe and then renting them out to people instead of having families buy them. But these account for a very small part of the current housing and rental market in Tempe, not nearly enough to account for the incredible growth in prices we've seen in recent years. And they further underscore how many people want to move here to Tempe and why we need to build more housing. A third argument focuses on the impact that more dense development has on our neighborhoods. I live across the street from Gracie Station on Apache. Many of my neighbors, before I lived there, were very much opposed to that particular development going in, for many of the reasons that people are opposed to the general plan and additional density now. But I can say, as somebody who's lived there now for several years, it's still a thriving neighborhood. There's families walking their dogs. I actually really enjoy having that apartment across the street from me. Of course, the thrift store is great. All of the neighbors there are great. My dogs get out of my backyard on a surprisingly regular basis because they're quite smart. They always, there's somebody always outside that apartment that helps me rein them back in. They're just really great neighbors, and I can't see why anyone else wouldn't want to have really great neighbors next to them. And the final argument I think you hear against the general plan is that this additional density really only benefits developers and the wealthy folks. But there's lots of evidence, and some other people have already brought up today, that shows that building market rate housing alongside affordable housing helps drive down housing costs across a wide spectrum of incomes and across a wide spectrum of the housing stock. We know that cities like Minneapolis have done such experiments in building a lot more housing of both market rate and affordable housing to actually and have shown that it's a really effective strategy to hold down housing inflation. So we should absolutely continue to invest in affordable housing and the Hometown for All programs, but market rate housing should be a part of the equation as well. Of course, this can't be the end all of our approach to affordable housing, and I don't think any of you think it would be, but I think this is a good first step, and it's something I think that we should support this density and support higher growth for a better future for Tempe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Ben Williams. Wow, right under the wire. I just want to acknowledge the wonderful infant in the back of the room, who I feel like is kind of my shadow mayor this evening. So
Thank you,
welcome.
Mayor.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Those are mine. Thank you.
Those are yours?
That's my better half back
Wow.
there.
See, I didn't even know that. Wow, how lucky am I to actually acknowledge it right at this point in time. So.
I feel lucky too, every day. My name is Ben Williams, and my wife and I and our children, we live in the Broadmoor area in North Tempe. Metro Phoenix stands at a pivotal moment, with urbanization reshaping our longstanding suburban landscape. Tempe is at the heart of this transition. We need to address density needs urgently or risk an unrecognizable city in a decade. I've witnessed similar changes in Decatur, located 6 miles east of Atlanta and near Emory University. Once a suburb like Tempe, it was a hub for diversity in the 80s and 90s. It was unique in metro Atlanta, where diverse communities often live separately. Decatur's urban shift, mirroring what Tempe is experiencing now, began 2 decades ago. Affluent families, attracted by its inclusivity, drove up property prices, leading to significant demographic changes. Average household income rose fourfold to $180,000 now. But with new affluence, the strong diversity faded, and the city is now homogeneous, like most other communities in Atlanta. My parents, unable to relate to the transformed Decatur, moved out a decade ago. Economics tells us, without increasing supply amid high demand, prices surge. As a homeowner, I appreciate property value growth, but we must consider its societal implications. Without enhancing density, Tempe risks becoming as exclusive as Decatur today. But there's a balanced solution that lets property values rise while preserving our city's character. Cities like Austin and Phoenix are tackling housing affordability innovatively. A recent CNN article attributed the housing crisis to single-family zoning, which started as a measure to protect residences but has now fostered exclusivity. It's time we modernize this zoning, letting homeowners enhance property value while promoting diverse housing options. Empowering homeowners to build a duplex or an ADU on their properties would add diverse new affordable housing options. In regards to the general plan, we prefer to remove the cultural resource designation from our neighborhood, the Alameda Character Area, and return to the overall density of the original general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Susan Conti. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. My name is Susan Conti. I'm a Tempe resident. The 2050 website starts out by saying that the City of Tempe has a deep respect for the natural landscape. How can that be when the plan adds more cement, high-rises, and urban congestion? The extreme heat the plan references will only be exacerbated by the city infringing on open spaces and by building too high so that the heat gets trapped in by the urban canyons. Blue zones, so we will all die happy? No, thank you. Health choices and lifestyles should be left to individuals and families. The 2050 plan states that the city will seek to utilize state and federal grants to offset the expensive budget. Do you realize that the federal government is already over $30 trillion in debt, with a projection of an additional $2 trillion a year for the next decade? I'm opposed to passing the 2050 plan. Any government plan which takes away an individual's right to choose is fundamentally wrong for the community. People must maintain their freedoms and make their own choices on how to live or where to work. If you want to drive an electric car or ride a bike, fine, but don't infringe on my right to drive a gas car. If you want to live within walking distance of work or shopping, fine, but don't infringe on my freedom of movement to travel across town or across the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I apologize if I get this wrong here. Mary Bilavaqua? I'm sorry. Tell me how. I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize in advance. So.
It's Mary Bevilacqua.
Bevilacqua. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Please state your name, place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Certainly. My name is Mary Bevilacqua, and I've been a Tempe resident for most of my adult life. I want to start out by saying that Tempe is a beautiful city, and I appreciate all that you do to make it so. But I do want to bring your attention to some of the extreme measures in the climate action plans, a goal of 0 emissions in 20-minute cities. I can't overstate how much this extreme action will hurt the people of your community. Its assumptions are founded on science that's highly disputed by those in the scientific community, including thousands of experts, Nobel laureates, and former heads of Greenpeace, the UN, and the Weather Channel. Since 1920, weather-related deaths have declined 90%, but the reason for that is because of fossil fuels. It's because of the advances that we've made in technology and energy that have allowed people to thrive who wouldn't have during a more primitive time. Owning a car, even an old beat-up car, is a great equalizer and raises the standard of living for the poor and middle class, gives them access to jobs outside a small area, gives them time to meet the needs of their children. In contrast, those being without a car, those confined only to public resources, face being limited in their employment, heat exhaustion and danger, and for many such as elderly would be confined to their homes without aids, especially during Arizona's summer months, which have always been incredibly hot no matter what year you're talking about. The predictions of climate change are based on incorrect analyses, choosing a certain date and certain criteria, and you make broad assumptions that don't equate to the complex reality of the situation. For example, the same year that Paul Ehrlich decided that the climate science showed that the world was headed towards a new ice age and that Europe would be a glacier by 1987, Arizona had at least 18 days over 110 degrees that summer. So it's just more complicated than that. Lots of the assumptions are not correct about climate change, and yet the actions are quite extreme, and it's caused suffering all around the world in Dutch Netherlands, UK, Sri Lanka, and as applied, the radical policy will be devastating for any community that implements it in a way, zero emissions and the 20-minute cities. So please look carefully at all the evidence and do what's best for the people of Tempe. I'm sure you will. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Bevilacqua.
Thank you.
Quick question for our clerk. Just by chance, is Trevor Barger in the queue? No? Just wanted to give it one last shot. Okay. Next up then, I've got James Bonner. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is James Bonner. I'm a resident of Tempe, Arizona, specifically in the Maple Ash area, which is very nice, but as an aside, it does need to be upzoned and densified sooner or later. Getting to my main bit, the policies that are set by this body have major impacts on ordinary working people like me. For example, my husband and I wanted to buy a house in Tempe, but by the time we felt ready to do so, housing prices dramatically increased. It is incredibly discouraging to see your financial targets receding from you faster than you can save up for them. High housing prices also puts renters at the mercy of corporate landlords who have raised rental prices by over 20% in the last 3 years. My graduate student stipend certainly has not increased by 20% since 2020, and neither have wages in general. Many of my fellow graduate students at ASU have been absolutely bled dry, and as rents steadily increase, many of them have been forced to move further and further away every year. I know one who even had to live in her car for a semester. Even if you are fortunate enough to have a mom and pop landlord that maybe rents at below market rates, there's always that niggling thought in the back of your head, this person could nuke my monthly budget if they wanted. Someone might be tempted to think, get over it, that's just the free market. But housing isn't a free market. It's highly regulated by the city, and there's a direct through line from the decisions that are made by the council to the cost of housing and quality of life. Someone might be thinking, just move. You might say, I have a couple of responses to this. First, housing prices don't stop at city boundaries. The people that could have otherwise afforded to live in Tempe are then pushed into adjacent areas, increasing demand and prices there too. Secondly, pushing out people who work or shop in Tempe will further exacerbate traffic concerns and congestion by increasing commuting. Allowing more people to live closer to where they work and recreate will reduce not only housing prices, but also alleviate commuting and transportation costs. Thirdly, as housing affordability declines, the high cost of housing will pass on to everyone else in the area in the form of higher costs of goods and services. Finally, the City of Tempe's finances will benefit from greater density. Every study that has been conducted on this matter has shown that denser cities come out ahead on property taxes, enjoy improved financial stability, and have superior economic growth. Cities are not museums. They're living, breathing places that must change in response to their people's needs, and responsible city leaders will prioritize the needs of society over the preferences of a few. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Nolan Williams. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Nolan Williams. I live in Tempe. I'm with Tempe YIMBY and as of recently the Urban Phoenix Project. First things first, I live in Daly Park. Please remove our community or cultural resource area designation. I would like it gone. I would like there to be more neighbors because Daly Park is very nice and I like lots of people to be there. It is fun when I see students sunbathing under the big weird carob trees that are weirdly shaped. It is weird smell with the baseball field, weird clay smell, but very nice. I like there being a lot of people there. Please put more people in my neighborhood. Second, I would like to say that I support this plan. I think it is a very good plan. There are some changes that we didn't like, some expansions to the cultural resource areas that I thought were egregious. To say that there is an area that should keep its zoning from 20 years ago for the next 30 years and to just paint them all over the city, everywhere willy-nilly without basically any thought, saying to residents who are opposing the plan and continue to oppose the plan, we'll give you everything you want, and have them keep coming back to the table and saying they want more, they want more, they want more, and just giving it all away to them. We are selling out our city, right? Now, there might be some exceptions in the room, and I'm referring to there is nobody in the room who thinks of themselves, himself, herself, theirselves, and thinks, wow, the city is so much worse since I came here. The city is worse because I'm here. Because I'm here, when I arrived, I made the city worse. They might think that about me, but they don't think that about themselves. Nobody is going to say that about their parents. If their parents came here and they were lucky enough to be born in Tempe, no one who, like me, is lucky enough to have parents who worked for the city of Tempe or worked in Tempe will say, boy, it is so much worse. The city is worse off because my parents worked for the city. Nobody says that the city is worse off because my brothers get to live here. Nobody says the city is worse off because I got to work here. Nobody says, boy, I want the businesses that I really like to have less customers. I want to have less options for restaurants. I want there to be less cultural creation. I want the bands that get started here to have a harder time finding venues in the city and finding listeners in the border of where they already live. People don't say that about their own cities. But they say it about newcomers. They say it about people who want to come to the city. They say, we don't owe an obligation to those people. We don't need to house those people. We owe them nothing. They can give us nothing. They're traffic. They're a headache. I mean, there's like 5 highways here. We have traffic because we have highways. We don't have traffic because there's people that live here, right? Support this plan, support more housing in the city, support more dense housing in the city, because it's good for culture, and it's good for our relationships, and it's good for all of us to relate to each other in nice, open, public spaces when our weather is usually paradise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, the next speaker I have is Samuel Thiel. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Council. My name is Sam Thiel, and I live in Daly Park. I would like you to upzone it. But other than that, I rent, I am a teacher. I just started. It's going great. I'm very tired. And I'm especially tired when I have to come to these meetings and I have to argue against my neighbors, asking for where I live to be downzoned and where my coworkers come and they work to not have housing. I'm frustrated that the people that I work with have to commute an hour to get into town. I'm frustrated that my students have to commute hours and have to ride public transit for very long periods of time. I want them to be able to live in the city that I love. I'm proud to live in Tempe. That's my piece.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, the next speaker I believe is Elba Quintero. Is that correct? Okay, great, wonderful. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Elba Quintero, and I live in Tempe. Good evening, Mayor Woods, and good evening to all the members that form the City of Tempe Council. I thank each one of you, and especially the persons that organized the Meet and Greet City Officials event last Tuesday, the 22nd of August. It was a success. It was a pleasure to meet and talk to many of you and to welcome our new city manager, Ms. Rosa Inchausti. Ms. Inchausti, le deseo la mejor de la suerte. I have been a Tempe resident since 1968. My 2 boys attended rural school when there was a rural school. McCamey, Connolly, Curry, McClintock, and Corona del Sol. So as you can see, I am well rooted like a mesquite tree in and on Tempe. For these and several other reasons that I will present, I cannot support the 2050 plan as it is written. Some of my concerns are obvious. To anyone who reads the 2050 work plan, the emphasis is housing. And I understand the housing is needed, but at what cost? Apartments that are taking every available space, even setbacks, and forcing other spaces to become available. Our green spaces are also in danger. There is much written in the plan about green spaces, shade cover, planting and replacing trees. My city tells me that for every tree removed, another tree will replace it. But I haven't seen that. So where is it happening? We, those of us that live in the Shalimar area, are under the threat of losing the Shalimar Golf Course to rental houses. Besides losing all the nice grass, we will lose about 100 trees. And not only trees and grass, but also the home to 2 foxes that have lived at Shalimar Golf Course for years. Shalimar is also the home
Ms.
of
Gutierrez,
owls.
I could do another 10 seconds, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Hummingbirds and several other species of birds. I thank you for this opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have this evening is Darlene Justice. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi. My name is Darlene Justice. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I've sort of rewritten things over and over tonight, listening to some of the people talk. I came to Tempe with my baby daughter in 1965. I had just turned 20, and my husband was out of the Navy, and we found a home in Tempe where we could raise our family. I have grandchildren that can't live in Tempe. I have grandchildren that work in Tempe and commute from other places. I'm trying to sell North Tempe tonight, okay? We finally are annexing the county island. We've got housing that's going in there. We have upped the ante on the housing in the county island. It's the closest property to transportation. The 202, you can go anywhere, and you can take the buses, whatever. I really appreciate that they changed the property that's along Hayden Road to the wash, now to 65 dwellings per acre, mixed use. And I hope that things can be built there. It's wonderful. They can look across and see the beautiful mountains until the Native Americans finally develop, but that'll hopefully be a great development too. I also am glad that along Scottsdale Road that they've upped the ante so we can get some better businesses in there, better neighbors in that. But I think it is important. I hear all the young people talking about that they can't live here. Well, I was young and I was able to live in Tempe. And so, but they're different. I have a grandson who lives in Phoenix and he commutes. He has a bicycle, he has light rail, he gets on everything, buses, he doesn't drive. I have other grandchildren, they aren't driving yet, they are commuting. We have young people that are doing that. But they need to have a place to live. And I do agree I don't want it to hurt anybody, but I do think we need housing. We need housing later, for housing first for some of the homeless people that need help. But I think housing is really important, and I think this general plan addresses a lot of that. So I will be voting for it, and I hope young people that are listening tonight, if you want this, then you better help get folks out to vote for it, or else it's not going to happen. And this is not changing zoning. We all will have another opportunity to come up and say, not quite like this, modify that. This is not changing zoning, but it's a good thing for North Tempe, I hope. And I thank you, and I thank Ambika and Jacob for all the work. They have been very professional, very courteous, and I think they've really listened and tried to really help. Thank you, Rosa, for getting a group of folks together. And I love Tempe. I've lived here a long time, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Quick thing here. I believe we have, I'll ask our city attorney. So I believe Ephraim is still here. Were you, Ephraim, I apologize. Were you speaking on this item as well, or the, okay, and that's okay. It's speaking twice on a different item is correct, right? Or
Could you ask that question one more time,
so
Mayor?
he spoke earlier on just the general public appearances, but he also put in a card for the general plan. So is it okay to speak twice if it's on two different items?
Actually, it's not.
They told me I could. That's why I specifically asked.
Okay. Let me do this just to make sure. Can I allow it this evening as the chair?
Yes, you
or-
can.
Okay,
Yes, you
wonderful. Please come forward, yes. State your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Ephraim McLaughlin, and here to speak about the 2050 plan. And also, I will find out from the Attorney General, from the Arizona Attorney General, if I've been violated today on playing audio from a council member that has posted on YouTube, and it's public. So I don't understand. I think it's been done in the past where people could play, maybe not at this council, but other councils in town. Anyways, I would like to say, well, I couldn't play the video, or the recording video that's public on YouTube that she has posted, Jennifer Adams. She said when she was campaigning that...
Wait, my only question is this regarding the general plan
Yes.
2050?
It's about the density.
Okay, sounds good.
So I
Please
just
go.
gotta say.
Okay, no worries. Just wanna make sure.
So she had pros and cons of density, and you could watch her video on YouTube, and she publicly says she knows that it's gonna make more of a traffic jam, and there's gonna be more homeless. It's gonna cause more of a homeless problem, and it's gonna change the character of your neighborhood. I mean, you can watch it for yourself. She does say that. She says that's one of the negative cons of it. And she said if people in that Pacific area don't like the high density, she'll listen to those people of that neighborhood. And today, well, throughout several meetings, people of the Broadmoor neighborhood, most of them, have said that they don't want the higher density in that Pacific area. And I hope that you guys will respect that neighborhood's decision, because there was changes made, and I think that they were taken out. So I hope you can fix the changes that were made in the area. You know, I just want to, I don't want to go hard after you guys, but I like to hold my city council members accountable for what they said. So, and you guys got any questions for me? Since I guess you can speak back and forth in this.
I don't have any myself. Anyone else on council?
All right.
Okay, here.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Thomas Zaworski. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm sure you've seen my ugly mug before because I was at the last meeting. My name is Tom Zaworski, and I'm a 30-year resident of Tempe. Time doesn't give people more right or more say. Time in a city doesn't dictate whether or not what I have to say is going to be taken over people in the audience, for example. But I don't expect that my being here and making a commitment to this city is going to be disregarded because I have white hair. And I've lived here for quite some time. So I'm here to show you and show my face to let you know that I'm here and I'm still concerned. I'm still engaged, and my concerns, like many, many others in my neighborhood and this community, are concerned with the plans in the 2050 general plan to overwhelm the neighborhoods in the city of Tempe. And frankly, the neighborhoods in this city are the foundation of why we're here. I know so many people in our neighborhood. And again, we've lived there for 30 years. And people have talked about how they love the fact that they have had interactions with people in new housing in the area of Apache. Well, I have no less love for the neighbors that I know. Every day I take my dogs for a walk through the neighborhood. There's at least 4 people that I see in the morning. I know them by first name. I've had them over to our house. So I'm concerned about the lack of balance in the 2050 general plan. The pie-in-the-sky projections of future growth don't make them so. You got to wonder how accurate these projections are if we've got to keep revising them every 10 years. And I know it's required by statute, and you do it every 10 years, but how accurate are they? Despite assurances that there will be plenty of water, at least on paper, to accommodate, 70,000 people in the next 25 years? God, I hope that's accurate. But from everything that I see around here, it's completely inaccurate. We've all seen saguaros. They're native. They're adapted here. I walked through the neighborhood today, and there were no less than 5 houses in our neighborhood where the saguaros, who have been there probably since these houses were built 55 years ago, first they lose their arms, then they fall over. These saguaros are sentinels, and they're bellwethers. They are bellwethers about whether or not we're going to sustain the growth that has been projected. And that they're telling us it isn't.
I can give you another 15 seconds. Yeah.
I'm waiting for changes. They're not there. And based on this 2050 general plan, I urge you to vote no on its current status. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Eric Ariano. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Eric Ariano, and I'm an 8-year resident of Tempe who recently just moved back from living abroad for a year to be a founding member of Cul-de-sac. I'm here tonight in general support of the plan and in opposition of the cultural resource areas and in support of further density. For 2 reasons. One is the housing crisis, and the other is that I want to live in a walkable and a safe community. When I graduated ASU 4 years ago, I was a middle school computer science teacher at Kyrene Middle School. And it was important to me to live in the community where I taught. And I ended up having to find a part-time job that I worked most evenings to be able to make the finances work because housing is so expensive. That was 4 years ago. I want to live in a Tempe where the people who work here can live here too. The grocery clerks, our teachers, our firefighters, everyone. We know that housing is a question of supply and demand. If you look, we don't have enough supply here in Tempe. And if you look at cities like Minneapolis, where they enacted zoning reform and got rid of parking mandates, it's made a huge difference on fighting back against housing inflation. We need more housing here, and the cultural resource areas push back on that. The other reason that I oppose the cultural resource areas is that I want to live in a walkable and safe community. A year and a half ago, when I was crossing the street on my bike at Rural in Rio Salado, a pickup truck rammed into me and broke my collarbone for 3 months that I couldn't use my arm at all. Fortunately healed now, but we still have a long way to go as a city to make it viable to live without a car. That's one of the big reasons I moved back to Tempe, so that I can live in a cul-de-sac, because I know that being able to live without a car is way better for the environment, it's better for my physical health, better for my mental health, living in a walkable community, and also great for the budget that the average American spends $10,000 a year to own a car. The cultural resource areas hold us back from making that progress towards a walkable and safe community. You all have shown amazing leadership in the past, and I hope that tonight you will continue to show leadership for a plan that builds a Tempe where people want to live and where they can afford to live. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Andrew Miller. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, council members. Thank you for having me. My name is Andrew Miller. I live in South Tempe. If you want to upzone the area around Warner and Rural, I'm certainly welcome to that. I work for a tech company in the Maker District here in Tempe, and we chose this area for reasons you might expect: the strong economy statewide, the central location of Tempe within the valley, and the good employment base and cultural amenities we have here. And this makes it not only one of the most desirable places in the valley, but it's competitive worldwide, as you all know, with all the relocations that are happening in semiconductor and other manufacturing. I'm here to support the plan for its modest density increases. I'd hoped for more, but if it's what we can get now, then we'll take it. Here's what this increased density will look like for my company. We're a company that does SaaS products for the manufacturing space. We have a mixture of white and blue collar in my office. And although every one of those employees would like to live in Tempe, only about half of them do. And so now they're commuting from Queen Creek, the west side, Gilbert Mesa. And those commutes are costly, both to their quality of life and their pocketbook. There was recently a study, just dropped today, where Gilbert and Mesa had some of the top 25 most expensive commutes. I don't want my guys going through that. It's hurting my competitiveness. The reason why we chose Tempe in the first place, for its competitive geography. We're trying to compete against Dallas and LA, and also China. A lot of our manufacturing solutions, we have to go toe-to-toe with Chinese suppliers, and they're facing problems of their own, but I'd rather not. I'd rather have a clear and distinct advantage living here in Arizona and in Tempe. So I'm supporting it for its modest increases in housing density, and I encourage you all to think, to vote yes and then think bigger for this city. I figure that, we're the 5th biggest city in the country. We're the 11th biggest metro area in the country, most powerful economy in the world. Maybe the skyline ought to look like it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Katie Bolligritz. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members. My name is Katie Bolligitz, and I am a renter in Tempe. I don't expect many changes to come out of tonight's meeting, but I wanted to emphasize some important characteristics as we look towards the future. The average and median age in Tempe are both around 30 years old. 76% of Tempe's population is under the age of 44. So this general plan is for us. We young people are the ones who will be here in 27 years when 2050 hits. It is our future. Also, the majority of Tempe residents are renters, as David mentioned also. We want to live in Tempe, but it's getting too expensive. To attain affordability here, we need to build more housing near jobs, services, and transit. I want more housing and more density in my neighborhood. I want a variety of housing options, such as more townhomes. No one is seriously proposing to put skyscrapers in the Broadmoor neighborhood, but we could put townhouses there that are 10 to 40 dwellings per acre. That's more medium density. That would be good for the neighborhood. Change is going to happen no matter what. Will we embrace it or will we fight it? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next up is Dylan Senderling. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Dylan Senderling. I am a resident of South Scottsdale, but prospective resident of Tempe, mainly because of cul-de-sac. And I just want to speak that that sort of vision that exists there is exactly what's bringing me to this city. I thought that I would really not have a future here in the valley because of the sprawl of suburbs, my family moving out of the main city into Queen Creek and having longer commutes where I have to get around and do my daily activities. And having a place like cul-de-sac is just incredible to see, especially in the valley in Arizona. It's amazing. And that sort of vision is exactly what I hope will continue with this general plan and into 2050. And just having that freedom to choose to live a walkable life, a bikeable life, rather than relying on a car for everything is amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Jeff Rutledge. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thanks very much. My name's Jeff Rutledge. I'm a Tempe resident, and I'm here to emphatically support greater housing density in the 2050 plan and just in general. I'm also a single-family homeowner. I live in the Brentwood Cavalier neighborhood just down here. And I think it's important to point out that many single-family homeowners do, in fact, support greater housing density. In fact, I believe greater density would improve the character of my neighborhood quite a bit. There's no reason that neighborhoods need to be trapped in amber. In fact, I think it's irresponsible to act that way. Look, we have a housing shortage. This issue touches on, it's hard to imagine an issue that impacts our quality of life so greatly. We're talking about affordability, we're talking about poverty and homelessness, we're talking about the environment, we're talking about economic growth, safety, and that's not even to touch on things like racial justice. You guys probably all know that exclusionary zoning is a direct descendant of policies that were meant to segregate by race. I don't think that's what we want to be about. I was lucky enough to buy my home in 2015, and frankly, I feel like we snuck in just under the wire. I don't think we could afford it today, and that's despite earning, quite a bit more money. That's a pretty disappointing state of affairs. I do love it here. I want to stay here. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I witnessed that area become basically a playground for the rich and the lucky, and I'm afraid that's where we're going as well. I'm 37 years old. I left the Bay Area in part because of affordability reasons. I know that many, we heard tonight from a few parents who said, hey, my kids can't stay here, my grandkids can't stay here. I think that's really disappointing, and I'd encourage us to avoid that. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Joseph Mitchell. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Joe Mitchell. I have been a resident of Tempe for 25 years. My residence is on Guadalupe and McClintock. I remember testifying for SB 1117 this past session, and I remember Mayor Woods saying that Tempe has a great idea of how to make Tempe affordable for the next 20 or so years. And after hearing that and then seeing that wide swaths of land near ASU are just going to be largely restricted from any new development, it's kind of hard to square those two ideas, because ASU adds 15,000 students every year. It's growing. That's new households being formed. They graduate about 9,000 from Tempe every year. That's just an insane amount of people that we need to accommodate for, because a lot of them are going to want to stay and work and live in Tempe. And we really, really desperately just need to accommodate for that kind of growth. And if we don't, we can kind of see what happens, because rents have been going up because we have not been accommodating for that kind of population growth and household formation. So when we look at these neighborhoods with the community restricted area, I forget what the exact term is, it doesn't accommodate for these people whatsoever. And these are people that we know are coming every single year, and they need housing. And we also see this in South Tempe, where we have teachers at Corona del Sol and in that South Tempe area, middle school teachers, high school teachers, elementary school teachers. The smallest unit of land that you have to buy to live within walking distance of those places is 5,000 square feet. Can they, I cannot square how we can have broad affordability if to live near these schools, you have to afford 5,000 square feet of land, or a lot of the homes are actually 15,000 square feet. You have to just own an inordinate amount of land and space in exclusion from everybody else in order to be a teacher. And that applies to all of our students there as well. As our populations age, as people want to move to Phoenix and the general Phoenix area and Tempe, we really desperately need to just add housings everywhere. Like, not insane amounts everywhere. We're not building high rises in South Tempe, but we need to accommodate for these kind of affordable housing typologies so that we can actually accommodate for our changing workforce and demographics. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Yoshi Bodiato. Yes, please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow resident of Tempe, honorable mayor and council member, I'm Yoshi of Tempe. I've rented here. I'm a homeowner in the southwest Tempe area. I'm doing my PhD in sustainability. I work, and I'm also a business owner in Tempe. Today, we stand at a crossroad. As we gaze upon the horizon of the city's future, we recognize the mounting challenge that the city has, and it's also a sustainability challenge that we can find opportunity. In 2050, a plan that we're considering is more than just a blueprint of buildings, roads, but it's also a vision of sustainable Tempe. With global concerns about climate change and environmental degradation escalating every day, cities like ours need to be at the forefront, embracing transformation, and also need to address issues that could elevate the residents' quality of life. Water is becoming increasingly scarce. City of Tempe can be a model of resilience, integrating innovative systems like rainwater, capturing gray water reuse, and permitting. It can also provide, safeguard our water resources and also improve conservation. And then there's an ever-looming waste accumulation issue. Imagine a city where waste doesn't just disappear into dumps. Yes, I am a consumer of the compost in Tempe. It's great, but we could do more. Imagine mandating a reuse of building materials and partnering with nonprofits like, what is it called? Stardust Building Supply of Mesa, or electronic reuse like AZ Strut locally here. We can turn potential waste into valuable resources, diverting it from dump to something that could be recycled, and in a circular economy where it can be repurposed again. Let's talk about housing. Everyone deserves a roof over their heads. By championing a mixed-use, high-density development, we're not just providing spaces where people just live, but it's also a vibrant space where living, working, recreation can converge. We can redefine our urban experience, making our city both efficient and lively. And lastly, transportation. A city that moves is a city that thrives. I'm glad that the city of Tempe has progress in transportation, but we could do more. And helping that could help reduce congestion. In conclusion, the road is filled with challenges, but with immense opportunities. Let's seize them. And yes, there are concerns of character, but also think about the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Trevor Malzewski. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Trevor Malzewski. I'm an ASU student, so I'm kind of in between Tempe and Chandler. So I support the original Tempe 2050 general plan, but I was disappointed to see the direction that we've gone in the past few meetings. There was a study that was done by someone, I believe a PhD student, on the San Francisco planning and zoning process. And essentially, they looked at the effects on public comments on the outcomes of new developments. And what they found essentially when they ran the regression to see what the effects were was that a negative public comment had about 2 times the sway of a positive public comment in terms of influencing a yes or no vote on a certain project. So I think that for a lot of people like myself who are big advocates of density in housing and less stringent zoning laws, we have this perception of this local process being kind of skewed in this way, but it is backed up kind of by data and unfortunately by my experience here in Tempe as well. I have nothing but good things to say about what the council and the staff has done, but to be honest, all of the changes that we have made on the general plan have been premised on this idea that there was this big community backlash to the plan, but what we have seen is that there has been a lot of support and opposition in different meetings, and I think by now this is my 3rd time being here at a meeting that we can safely say whether there's more support or against that perception that there is just this big unified backlash against it is just not true. So I think it is very harmful to see that we are adding new CRA designations to people's neighborhoods based off of this perception, because we in some cases are having people come to the city council who are property owners in those areas and saying that they don't want this, which also could be a potential Prop 207 violation. I'm not a legal expert, but every American also wants to be a legal expert, so I guess I'll make myself one. But look, I've heard a lot of stuff about how Gracie's Village and along the light rail was reduced in the build by about 10 to 15 units or something. And I looked on Google Street View today, and that project was built around like 2013. That was 10 years ago, and I believe that was a big mistake because I know that Tempe cares a lot about building new affordable housing and that you guys have good initiatives to do that. To think that we're making the same mistakes 10 years later, I think is very concerning for me. So, more density, more housing. I support the original version of the plan, and I hope that we just continue to go more in that direction from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Wow, well done. The next speaker I have is Philip Yates. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Philip Yates, and I'm the president for the Riverside Neighborhood Association. Back on May 16th, history was made. And that was that because our city council, mayor, and DRC, they all enthusiastically voted for the Tempe Coyotes buildings and everything over there off of the Rio Salado. And we really need to make note of the fact that we have to change for the better. And we need to speak to everybody. And we need to be listened to. During all of the proposed, or the they showed a whole bunch of presentations of what the 2050 plan is, and we don't know what it is. A lot of people don't, and we should. We have to get with the community leaders and have brainstorming with everybody. And so we can know what the 2050 is and what it will do to the future of our city. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Elizabeth Stewart. I believe that she's virtual.
Hello, Elizabeth. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Elizabeth Stewart. I'm a Tempe resident. The general plan 2050 is not a sustainable plan. Tempe residents deserve better. The 2050 plan fails to preserve the quality of life for existing residents and fails to provide for a desirable quality of life for residents and occupants of the new high-rise, high-density buildings that the 2050 plan encourages. Tempe is one of the hottest cities in the metropolitan area. The plan, along with Tempe's planned passage of a voluntary instead of mandatory green construction code, will result in a rush of cheaply constructed high-rise buildings that significantly increase the heat island effect, greenhouse gas emissions, energy and water consumption, and overburden existing sewers, landfill, and parks, and fail to produce more affordable housing. The current 2040 plan maximum density designation of 25 units per acre should be maintained south of Apache to protect the quality of life of existing residents. In that area, low-rise multifamily residents such as townhomes, condominiums, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes are likely to be more affordable and desirable for families than high-rise or mid-rise housing. The proposed Tempe voluntary green construction code should be adopted as a mandatory code for all new commercial and multifamily construction before the existing 2040 density levels are increased for areas north of Apache. This will help to mitigate the heat island effects of the high-rise buildings and ensure that residents and occupants have more affordable energy costs and live in healthier buildings and surroundings. The 2050 plan should require that any new high-rise construction contain green open space buffers with drought-resistant shade trees and plants and natural vegetation ground cover to provide shade, cooling, and a healthy living space. The 2050 plan should strictly prohibit any new construction without required setbacks from the sidewalk. Alley walls should not exceed 8 feet tall. After Tempe adopts a mandatory green construction code, the 2021 International Energy Code, and requires green space buffers for new commercial and multifamily construction, it should carefully consider increasing density north of Apache, especially around Big Surf on McClintock and the
Ms. Stewart?
I-10 corridor
Ms. Stewart, I can give you another 10 seconds.
near Elliott and Warner, where there are many employers, sufficient transportation, and enough open space for buffers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next speaker I have is Robert Moore. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Robert Moore, Tempe, Arizona. I wanted to thank Principal Planner Dr. Adhikari and Senior Planner Payne for all their late hours they've dedicated towards putting this plan together, along with Directors Jeff Temilovich and Shauna Warner, and of course Brenda Clark and Joanna Berry. As a member of the community work group, you learn a lot and hear diverse inputs from community, and the experience has honestly changed my perspective on understanding the city government and the community and how they interact. But 2 clear takeaways from this is that the community conversation about Tempe's future needs to continue, and that the challenges associated with the 2050 general plan process should be used as a learning opportunity to help improve public outreach, feedback, and survey practices, better connecting City Hall with the community. On that note, I'd like to ask for your support on 2 items. Number 1, coordination of an independent feedback opportunity for members of the 2050 Community Working Group, Technical Working Group, and city staff and general public to learn from the experience and better prepare ourselves for the general 2060 plan and other city initiatives. Number 2, follow through with the 2050 plan guidance for community-based advisory growth advisory committee that continues to explore, engage, and discuss these broad themes over the next 10 years prior to the next general plan cycle, while also helping ensure that community goals within the 2050 general plan are recognized and respected if approved by voters in 2024. I honestly believe these commitments will offer long-term benefits for both the City Hall and the community. I also just wanted to back up Rodney and Ann's vision for Donnell Plaza. Their recognition of the amazing collaborative potential it offers for Tempe is on the mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Quentin Olson. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Quentin Olson. I'm a resident of Tempe. As many other people, especially around my age, have mentioned, we all support an increase in density. Density helps with our culture here. Tempe and most of the valley has become a hub for implants. Like myself, I'm originally from Colorado, but I really like the people here and all the things that it has to offer, especially with different cultures that I don't get to interact with normally. One main thing for that is our music here is fantastic. Donnell Plaza is a great example of that, along with their arts that they display there of different styles and backgrounds. Something that is important to me is biking. I'm still in my cleats right now. I biked here. I try to bike everywhere I can. It's very hot, very hard to, especially during the summer. But we have made it a very bikeable city. One thing I would like for the safety is instead of just having bike lanes, having something to actually divide, as simple as rumble strips, to give more than just a visual for where bicyclists are supposed to be, but also a sound warning for a car. I'm guilty of slightly meandering into a bike lane when I'm driving. I can't deny that. But if I had a rumble strip, I would definitely know exactly when to keep over into my own lane. Something along with transit is that, and shade, I should point out, is that a lot of our public transit stops are uncovered. We have an estimated 25%, or for 2050, there will be an estimated 25% shade cover. I would really like if there was a percentage of transit stops that will have shade also in the general plan, just so that we all have an idea or a goal in mind to keep at, because that is very important for those of us who do use the public transit on a daily basis. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, the next speaker I have, let me make sure I'm getting this correct. Is it Dean? Is there a Dean Friend or Foyas or? I can't read the last name. I apologize. Is there a Dean here? No? Okay. It says Dean F. No. Okay. All right, the next speaker I have is Mary Ertley. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Mary Ertley. Residence would be Phoenix, Arizona, talking about a property at 821 Maple, which had an overhead. Thank you for meeting with us, Mayor. I believe that there's been some misstatements and inclusion of 821 South Maple into becoming or being the CRA because of the historic properties. While everybody has been talking, I looked, and there's actually only 7 houses that are in the National Register of Historic Places in the Maple Ash neighborhood. And that is out of 127 properties south of 9th Street and 12 properties that are north of 9th Street. We are north, our parcel is north of 9th Street. We are surrounded by total commercial properties, Chick-fil-A, CVS, Chase Bank, and a rock's throw away from us. You're aware of the 2 properties that sold for $5.8 million. So again, we are not CRA material. We don't represent the character of the neighborhood. The house was not built on a foundation. It was up on dirt. It's just not something to preserve for the neighborhood. South of 9th Street, there are properties, and if they want to list themselves on the Tempe Historic Register, fine, but leave us out. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Zoe Stark. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Zoe Stark. I'm a resident of Tempe, and I'm also a student at ASU. I moved here 2 years ago after being priced out of my hometown in Seattle, Washington, greater King County area. I lived out of my car for most of the pandemic, and it's disheartening to come here where rent was so much cheaper, maybe half the price that I would be paying in Seattle for a similar unit. And just seeing how much rent has gone up in the year that I needed to renew my lease. There are a lot of things about this plan that I love. I love the trees. I love the fact that we're aiming to make shade and a percentage of our walkways shaded. That's very important to me because I walk to school as part of my my routine. It takes about 15 minutes in direct sunlight for me to become completely overheated. And I know that there are a lot of other people here who don't rely on cars to get around, and this would be a huge issue. So having trees and increasing that number from 25% to an even greater percentage would be really important for me. Also defining the types of trees that we're planting. There are trees that lots of businesses plant, palm trees, they provide no shade whatsoever. You can be walking under a row of palm trees and you're completely in the sun. So I would love to see Tempe define the types of trees that they're going to be planting, and then also possibly define female trees as trees that they would plant. They're fruit-bearing trees, and we have a large percentage of, a large population of unhoused members of our community, and yeah, so trees, bikeways, walkways, yeah, and affordable housing. We're also going into a very scary time where the ability to invest in homes or some sort of equity is disappearing, and I would love to see the city protect a certain portion, or at least plan in a certain portion of housing where people can purchase condos and then build that equity instead of just becoming a renter nation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Sean Rogers. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Sean Rogers, resident of Tempe, Arizona. Thanks very much. You guys have a really hard job, my gosh. And you got to stay so interested the entire time people are talking as well. So hats off. I want to start with a story. Last week, I was walking with my buddy Warner, and we were going to hang up one of our Save Shalimar banners. And we heard this woof, and it was one of the great horned owls. I saw 3 of them that night, actually, and I came home and told my son, Evan, and he was so excited, and he wanted to go out the next night, and he had to record a video and take pictures, and they're just such majestic creatures, and I think it's really important that we preserve the character, some of the things that brought us all to Tempe in the first place. I know that, I had the opportunity to meet with a couple of the developers that are planning to begin construction in 2025 in the Shalimar area. And they are planning on building, I spoke with them, rental units that are in there, houses that are rental houses. And it's just, I understand the difference between the general plan and the zoning meeting because that whole thing takes place later. But I think that it's important to realize the concern that residents have about preserving what it is that we have here and how special it is. And some of the areas that are just so unbelievably special. It's like nothing else. Thanks for hearing me, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have is Kent Ertley. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi. Thank you, council members and mayor. Thank you for speaking to us. I'm extremely encouraged by our future here. Seeing so many young people speak tonight is really exciting to see them involved in this system. It's really a great thing to see. It makes me think that we're going to have a great, promising future. So, I'm here to speak opposed to the CRA designation on our property at 821 South Maple. With my we've owned this with my family since 1982. Our property is north of 9th Street and surrounded by CVS, Chick-fil-A, Chase Bank. Our property is the buffer area between dense urban core and the Maple Ash neighborhood to the south, south of 9th Street. We bear the brunt of the social transition with transients and crime. Our property is not a neighborhood. We're in that twilight zone of Tempe with a recent shooting, a drug overdose death, drunkenness, defecation due to lack of thoughtful planning in our area. In 1962, then President Kennedy placed an embargo on Cuba. The U.S. did not take Cuba's property or rights, but to this day, the Cuban people drive 1957s or 57 Chevys and are locked in the 1950s. Tempe, in 2030 general plan, placed CRA on our property against our will. The city and its planners claim it is a harmless designation of little impact, but in fact, it takes a general plan amendment to remove. Just as President Kennedy damned Cuba to remain locked in the 50s, the CRA designation damns our property to be locked in the year 2000. When this veiled, reportedly benign CRA designation originally showed up in the 2030 general plan. Did CRA change our zoning? No. Did CRA place a high barrier for the city of Tempe to effect productive change on our property? Yes. The planning department states that CRA not be removed due to the numerous potential historic properties. However, that reasoning is really fallacious, as the owners of those potential historic properties are not in support of historic designation, which the statute requires. The young people are paying the price of high rents and unaffordability in Tempe due to the lack of housing supply. The cost of CRA designation Freezing zoning on our property in the Tempe urban core will be borne by the younger generation in the short term and ultimately the city of Tempe's future opportunity costs. I close with this.
I'll give you another 15 seconds. Yes.
Okay,
sure.
thank you. The productivity gains of a Cambrian explosion only happen with change. However, resistance to change inhibits the productivity of a city, and the damaging effects are often not felt until it's too late, when you end up like a city like Detroit or Cleveland or Baltimore or even San Francisco in these days. So I beg you to be thoughtful about the CRA designation in this city and let growth happen for the younger generation here so they can afford to stay in this great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Ryan Fickenshire. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
My name's Ryan. I'm from Phoenix. That's where I reside, but I am born and raised from Tempe, Broadmoor neighborhood. I was a bobcat, a tiger, and a charger. Corey Woods, that was your first donation in 2006 for your first failed city council run. Navarro, I answered the door.
Good night, everyone.
When you were campaigning. And I would like to say, Councilmember Hodge, when your son is ready to run again, I will be voting for him for a 3rd time. So, that said, first I wanted to say that what makes the character of a city is not the built environment, but the people that make it up. My grandfather eloped with his wife and moved out here and became a city planner and designed Kiwanis Park. My family's been here for 3 generations, and I would say the character of a city is actually the people in the city that make it up, the character of it. And I would just like to say that preserving a building because it is the character of a neighborhood is wrong. It's actually promoting the people that actually live there. And right now, I can tell you, there's a sea change. There is a housing crisis right now all across this country and the world, to be honest, where young people can no longer afford to live where they grew up. I can't. My wife and I just recently bought a dirt lot in the Mitchell Park neighborhood, and it's a struggle even then to just even try and claw my way back to the city of Tempe. I think it is treasonous to future generations to designate the entire ring of ASU as CRA when in fact it's the largest public university in the nation. I would like to also say when we think about 2050, we also need to consider who will be Tempeans in 2050. It's people, the young people going to ASU right now who need to set down roots right now and preserve that talent in the city. You need them to realize that they can live here and afford it. There is a concern about the heat. By 2050, they predict more than 100 days per year, over 110. 30 this year was an existential crisis. But that can be mitigated with new technology and new building standards. You will not get new technology and new buildings if you put every house around ASU in amber and preserve it. I live in downtown Phoenix. Our community is a historical neighborhood, but the houses are so inefficient that we are burning through cash just keeping it cool. The nice thing about downtown Phoenix is that they are built around these little tiny commercial areas so that if I do want a coffee or I do want to go to a restaurant, we can always walk around to these communities and we don't have to drive down to malls. So I would also say that is also an opportunity to reduce transit and transportation. Anyway, I would like to thank everyone because I know you guys' jobs are hard. It's hard enough to come up here and yell at you guys. But I really do like that you guys, where you guys are heading, I just say, just push the envelope just a little bit more, you know? And hopefully in the future that more housing can be provided for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, once again, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, so I apologize. Etienne Lefebvre. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Etienne. I've been coming to Tempe since 2016 when I met my partner, and
their in-laws have been living here since 2003. So I've been here, most years, multiple times a year, maybe a bit less in the pandemic times, but I've had a lot of interesting conversations with my in-laws about the city. And one thing I really noticed when I first came here was the Mill Avenue Street. And so that was really the center of the city. It really spoke to how Tempe differentiated itself from the other like neighborhoods like Glendale and Phoenix, for example, that are a lot, for example, more car-centric in their downtown cores. But a lot of people have already spoken about the importance of walkability that density brings and the importance of facing it, for example, a changing climate and an energy scarce future that is probably will probably have a lot of inflation to it. So, right, so the importance of, for example, having less car dependency. But I like to convince, for example, the city of Tempe itself that they should want a more density to ensure that the city remains financially solvent in the future. As the legislative body of the city of Tempe, you do have a fiduciary duty to ensure that the city remains financially solvent going forward, right? To ensure that there's a stability of services that are provided for future generations. And the best way to do that, according to multiple studies, especially those that are performed by Urban 3, a nonprofit, and for example, also Strong Towns, is to ensure that the city has dense infrastructure. One of the reasons for this is because when you have more density, especially in housing, you have lower costs that are incurred on the city when it comes, for example, to sewage, when it comes to roads, even when it comes to like services like schools or police or firefighters, right? And so if we want to ensure that the city of Tempe, remains afloat financially and, for example, increases the amount of money that are reserved for affordable housing, we need to increase density, right? That would ensure that it's possible to, quadruple the amount that allocated for affordable housing, which is currently around 16 million. I think we should aim for something like 200 million. And we can do this without increasing property taxes if we really push the envelope on the vision when it comes to encouraging more dense housing, right? Like the city of Tempe is at a crossroads here. We have like a development like cul-de-sac, which is already bringing a lot of attention. And this is right, there's been reported in the Washington Post and Bloomberg. This is the type of development that the city of Tempe should really be focusing on, not only to encourage a lively community here to develop in the future, but also to remain financially solvent, especially in the face of a changing climate landscape. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That was the last speaker I had. Is there anyone else in the audience who's wishing to address the city council on this item? If so, please get my attention. Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Luke Rubio. I grew up in Tempe, been here since I was born. I recently moved out and live in Mesa right now as of about a little less than a month ago. I'm here because housing in Tempe is becoming increasingly unaffordable, and I would like to be able to afford a house here, maybe rent sometime in the future. I grew up here, and so I loved living in Tempe. I meandered around Papago Park when I was younger, sometimes getting chased by coyotes, sometimes chasing coyotes. It was a great place to grow up, and I wouldn't want it any different. So I think that in the future, if we have more density and more housing, that more people can share the same childhood that I maybe had, and it'd be good for the city.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, is that an additional card or with this one? Okay. All right. I will look to see if there's anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council. Yes, please come forward. Please state your name and place of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Paul Rubio. I live in Tempe. I've lived here my whole life. I'm here to voice my support for the 2050 plan. More affordable housing and density will allow those who work in Tempe and take up painstaking commutes to live reasonably within the city. The character of Tempe is not just in the walls of these CRA areas, it's in the people. And people old and new, this growth isn't about taking away anyone's seat at the table. It's simply allowing more people to sustainably sit at the table. This is the city of the future, and we must progress with this plan to keep Tempe livable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the city council on this item? Please get my attention if so. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion. Council, I'll look to see if there's any comments or questions for staff or anything. I just had one quick thing. One thing that Rob Moore talked about during the course of his comments was talking about kind of looking over the 2050 plan. I'd love to talk at some point about if we have an existing board or commission or some group, perhaps also that could sort of take that under their wing in terms of looking at it. I know we've talked about creating new groups, but the challenge of that sometimes I want to respect what he was saying, but I also know sometimes the challenge is the staff has to then kind of, monitor another group and take minutes and things of that nature. And so I was, one thing I'd love to explore, Madam City Manager, after the meeting is perhaps if there's another group that already exists that could actually look at something like that, whether it's the Development Review Commission, the Neighborhood Advisory Commission, and a group that sort of already exists under the city charter perhaps, but that's just sort of a question we can talk about a little bit later. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Mbika.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and council people, actually in this plan, there is a provision of something called, there's no real name, but something like a Citizen Advisory Committee.
Okay.
To look at the monitoring and implementation of the plan. The name could be, and the language is written in a very flexible, general, high level. Name could be changed, and it could also be done with any existing bodies that the mayor and the council wishes, but there is a provision that we put in there.
You have literally thought of everything.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was actually, it was suggested by one of the members. I think it was Hill who suggested, and we respected that.
Wow. Yeah. Well done. Thank you, Mbika. All right. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions? So I guess statements. Anyone want to start, or do you want me to start? Okay. So a number of comments here, but I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. But obviously, this has been a months-long process, so it might take a little bit longer than I think. So I apologize in advance. But first of all, I just wanted to thank our staff for the incredible amount of work they've done. Jeff Tamulevich, you and your entire team. I know you've spent, I believe it's about probably roughly 40 meetings over the last few months with residents, just trying to spend time, trying to understand their concerns. And obviously, we've heard a great diversity of perspectives here this evening. But I just wanted to say my hat's off to you and your team for the incredible amount of work you've done. I know you've worked all days, nights, weekends. I attended a meeting you had, a joint neighborhood meeting virtually when I was out of town at a conference that you had with our Brentwood, Cavalier, and Broadmoor neighborhoods. And I appreciated you and your entire team working with the neighborhood leadership there to ensure that they could have that meeting at a point where they could actually guarantee more attendance, which was frankly on a Saturday morning / afternoon. So I really do believe that you and your staff have gone above and beyond to ensure that all voices have been heard and that you're trying your best to make sure that people have the opportunity to participate. So thank you for all of your work. And I wanted to thank you and your entire team, Jeff, Jacob, Ryan, Mbika, each and every one of you. Just my hat's off to you. Thank you. And I just wanted to thank also the residents who took part in this process. We also know this is a very painstaking process for people who served on the technical advisory group, the community working group, the development review commission, and frankly, just our residents who attended meetings to offer their feedback and input on the future of the city. So I really appreciate the time that you devoted to this, and just want to say thank you as well. The other thing I wanted to say really quickly too, and I said this at the previous August 10th meeting, is that this is something where everyone who comes to talk at these meetings is well-intentioned. And I think that's one of the things that I always take away from these processes. Regardless of what side you fall on, whether it's more density or less density or keeping things currently where they are, I know that the people coming to this meeting, they're speaking from the heart. That is really what they genuinely believe, and they're only saying it because they believe that that is what is in the best interests of the city. No one comes here for the purpose of trying to destroy the city that they live in. We're all here because we love the city of Tempe. I've been here for 20 years myself, and that's why I'm here in the current job that I'm in. I absolutely love this community. And I know that each and every person who's come out and advocated for this plan or against the plan or whatever opinion that they've shared, whether it was August 10th, whether it was this evening, or at any one of the previous meetings, I know is doing so because they feel like that is in the best interest of our city. And honestly, I love hearing the diversity of opinions and perspectives that people have represented over these last few months. I think that's what makes Tempe such an incredible and such a unique place. I also think that this document really represents a compromise. And compromise isn't a dirty word. I know sometimes in today's politics nationally, that's sometimes that many times our politicians and people of that nature don't have any reason to compromise with one another or don't seem to want to. But the fact of the matter is, I think that this document represents a very good compromise between a lot of the positions that you've heard this evening and frankly before. There are people who are clamoring for less growth and less density because their concern is traffic, congestion, neighborhood character, and saying, hey, we've lived here for 20, 30, 40, even 50 years, and we're concerned that the city's changing or that the city might be changing at too rapid of a pace. And so I know the staff has really listened to those perspectives, and that's frankly why some of the earlier densities were reduced. It was at the request of many of our long-term residents who really want to make sure that some of that neighborhood character is preserved. And I appreciate the fact that those residents spoke up and that the staff actually listened very attentively to those concerns and made changes and adjustments to the document. But I also have heard a lot of people come out and talk about the need for increased density. Many people have cited the study of Minneapolis, where the rent prices have only gone up about 1% over the last couple of years, where in some places, especially the greater Phoenix area, we've seen rents jump 20, 25, 30% over the last 2 or 3 years. And clearly there is a supply and demand issue, and I think that's a very, very valid point about talking about trying to find a way to increase supply so people do have choices, and that will help eventually to stabilize some rents. It's not the only thing I think that will actually solve the affordability issue. I think there's a lot of other issues that I've talked about in great detail before, and I'm happy to talk about it some other time, but I don't want to go too long or start giving a seminar this evening. But I appreciate the fact that people who have had that perspective of wanting additional growth and wanting more units and being concerned about the younger generation or teachers or people working in the hospitality or service industries, that they also have the ability to live here without having to commute 45, 50 minutes, even an hour to and from work each and every day. I think that really is critically important. I know we had a teacher come up earlier who talked about that as well, about the inability to live here and how our teachers are getting rapidly priced out of this community. Councilmember Hodge and I have had that conversation many times. We've talked to superintendents who've said exactly that. We are having a very hard time keeping our teachers in this community. They simply cannot afford to live here anymore. And I think it's a moral imperative that the people who teach our kids how to read, write, and do arithmetic have the ability to live in the city that they actually work in. And so I think it really is critically important that we do create more housing. Now, here's the thing. I know the notion of doing some of these even mixed-use, low-density classifications, I know that doesn't mean that we are guaranteeing affordable or workforce or attainable housing. That is one of the challenges, unfortunately, of being in Arizona, is that there are certain laws that have not provided cities and towns with I think, frankly, are the tools that we need to really guarantee affordable housing to our residents. I've talked about this before, about the lack of inclusionary zoning, the lack of tax increment financing, being the only state in the entire country without access to that tool, which I think is crazy. The business community wants it. The housing community wants it. It's something we should be able to get done in a future legislative session. And frankly, I would hope soon, given the housing crisis that we desperately face right now. And inclusionary zoning, I wish we had it. The ability to say, we will approve a certain development, but there has to be a certain percentage set aside for affordable units. And think about some of the complexes we've approved here. 300 units. If there was a 20% set aside that we were legally allowed to do, you would get 60 of those units that would actually be affordable for teachers or people working in the service industry. But unfortunately, that's a state issue that we can't affect sitting up here, but it's something that I know I myself and our council will continue to advocate for at the state capitol, because all the 91 cities and towns in the state of Arizona, frankly, need more tools so we can guarantee affordable housing to people who desperately need it. So I understand when we talk about these mixed-use, low-density designations on places that are currently strip centers, I know we're not saying we're guaranteeing affordable housing, because we can't. But the challenge is, if you're living in a community that's roughly somewhere between 40 to 42 square miles, and completely landlocked. Unlike a lot of other communities that have additional agricultural land or land that's not been developed, other than annexing further portions of the county island, which I know Vice Mayor Adams is working very hard on, we have to find a way to make the best use possible with the land that we actually have. And so I've gotten a lot of emails from people saying, we have to find a way to create more affordable housing. Well, the way to give ourselves, from my perspective, the best opportunity to do that is you have to take some of these areas that are zoned strictly 100% commercial and create a mixed-use, low-density classification so you actually have the ability to create more housing units on some of the space that we have, which is very sparse. It's not only good from a housing standpoint, but we've also heard small business owners come up during a period of meetings and say the same thing. People's shopping habits have changed. Many times people don't want to drive to a shopping center anymore. People are ordering products on Amazon or ordering products from direct-to-consumer places, and they're not necessarily going to shops as much as they once did because simply the world is changing and people's buying habits are changing. But a lot of the small business owners have said these mixed-use, low-density designations provide an opportunity to have housing actually on site right next to that mom and pop barbershop or restaurant or bar or retail shop, so they actually have customers built in right there that could help keep our mom and pop businesses afloat for a long time so they can pay themselves and pay their mortgages and put their kids through college and keep a roof over their heads. And I think that's why that is so critically important. I also want to say one of the big things that I've seen over the last few years, because I got on council here in 2008, and I remember one of the first things that I saw and I heard about a lot from residents was the concern about students living in neighborhoods. We would hear that often. It's like, hey, there are a lot of students living in single-family neighborhoods, and one of the areas where I've actually seen a change, we get complaints every now and then about a party or something of that nature, but with a lot of the added density along Apache Boulevard and a lot of the density in the downtown near and around the university, we've got more and more students who aren't choosing to live in single-family neighborhoods, but choosing to live in some of these apartment buildings, some of them student housing, some of them market rate housing, but they're choosing to actually live in areas with other students because they do want to live together and cluster together. So the actual presence of a lot of the density that's been built in the city, from my perspective, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, has allowed a lot of our students to have the opportunity and our young people to live in the downtown and on Apache Boulevard and leave some of the single-family neighborhoods, frankly, to longtime residents who are looking to have families more immediately and grow their family and have kids or have dogs or things of that nature. So I just think that's one of the added benefits of some of the density that we've seen that's been a demonstrable success during the time that I've been involved in politics here in the city of Tempe. But the last thing I'm going to say, and then I will turn this over, actually two quick things. I talked about the mixed use low density designation. One of the other things that I think about often is people have talked a lot about the lack of starter homes, that we don't have starter homes left in this community. I see it often as a person who's frankly a renter myself, and I've rented for 3 years in the heart of the downtown and look to buy a home when it seems like you can't find any home under $475,000 or $500,000 at an interest rate that I checked yesterday was at 7.6%. So even after you put down a 20% down payment, your rent or your mortgage is still going to be $2,900, $3,000 a month, which for most people, including myself, is completely unsustainable and just simply not possible. So what I think about the need for starter homes, and I do think that those mixed-use, low-density designations you're going to see are going to give us the opportunity to create some of the smaller townhomes and patio homes and potentially condos. But I also think about it, frankly, for our senior population. I talked to a lot of people who've lived here for 30 or 40 years, and at one point they had a child or two who went through our Tempe schools, and the children have now grown up, and they're getting older, and they're saying, look, I want to downsize. I don't want to live in the 2,500, 3,000 square foot home anymore because it's too much to maintain, and my kids aren't going to come back home and move in with me. I really would like a smaller patio home in Tempe that I could stay in that would be smaller and much easier to maintain and much lower maintenance. We don't have a lot of those homes anymore in the city of Tempe, but I think that mixed-use, low-density designation up to 25 dwelling units per acre will allow us to create homes for empty nesters who are looking to potentially still own or rent, but in much smaller dwellings than the homes that they lived in 25, 30 years ago that might have been right for them at that point in their life. The last thing that I'll say about this, and then I will close and turn this over. One of the things, and probably the thing that I love most about this city, and I've been here since June of 2003, so a little over 20 years, is the fact that in such a small place geographically, you can have so many different kinds of environments in one city. I think about myself, who lives right here in the downtown, and will walk home this evening after our meeting concludes, and I'll be home in about 5 minutes. I walk to work every day. There are days when I'm not in a car at all because I have the ability to have a lot of my meetings in and around the office, and sometimes I deliberately structure things that way. Just because I'm trying to get more exercise and trying to get more fresh air. It's better for my mental and emotional health, frankly, to get out there and walk around. But then I look at two of my colleagues who are sitting up here who live in a neighborhood in South Tempe on horse property. They live in a beautiful single-family neighborhood, and every time I walk there, I love the open space. I've actually walked the horse trails with Councilmember Garland a couple of times and had a wonderful time. And I love the fact that you have the ability in Tempe to have a dense, urban, walkable downtown with the streetcar and the university and all of this sort of interesting nightlife and things going on during the day. But just a few miles south, you have the ability to see children and families riding around on horses and having picnics in the middle of the park. I think you have the ability to have all of these different environments coexist within the same city. And I think the city of Tempe has done an exceptional job of achieving that, having multiple different environments for different people who have different wants and different needs, all within 42 square miles. And I think that's the wonderful thing about this city. And I think this plan accomplishes that. We're not asking for changes to single-family neighborhoods. We're going to preserve those and allow people who've lived here for a long time in single-family homes and who like those homes to continue living in them. But for people who are coming around now who might want more density or a different kind of living or something more urban with the ability to have access to transit or to bike or to walk, we're also going to allow them to have the ability to do that as well. And I think that's exactly what a plan like this should have. It should be a compromise, and it should be a balance between all of those respective positions. So Tempe is really a place for all of us to live, regardless of who we are or regardless of what kind of lifestyle we have. So I'm proud of this. I'm proud of the work the staff has done. I appreciate all of our residents who participated, and I will absolutely be supporting this evening. Anyone else? Yes, Councilmember DeVore.
No, I just quickly want to say thank you to staff and the residents. I'm absolutely impressed with everyone who's come up here tonight and spoke. Just your words, your thoughtfulness on your perspective of what this city is about, the perspective of what the future is for you guys. I love it. I mean, you guys are actually thinking of the dynamics, what this city can be. I lived here all my life. I mean, back in my house when I lived from downtown ASU, we moved down to southern part of Tempe, cornfields. I rode my bike in cornfields. I rode, in dirt fields. That was how I grew up. My kids aren't growing up like that. I mean, I used to go out to Ray Road and shoot my gun. That was easy to do. But things change. We move on. We grow, we grow, we grow. How we grow, one gentleman came up here, is how we grow. What businesses we bring in, the economy that we grow here, the protection that we have for the city, the fact that we can provide these services for you guys is because of the smart growth. We just lost two developments that actually contribute to losing several millions of dollars of affordable housing money. And that's a hit. We're trying to keep a balance, but these growths, often take a hit. The thing is, we're really in depth with what is going on in the city. We get a lot of the background of things that happen within the city. And we try to represent you guys as best as possible with the information that we get. And believe me, I mean, if you guys could go to these meetings, you would truly, truly understand. And the thing is, when staff brings up a plan, when you share it with the community, and we do our best to provide this information to make a plan as best as we can. I would love to hit a home run, hit about 1,000. I would love to. I would love to have every one of your issues covered. Rock stars up here. It is one of the most complicated things to do. But the thing is, it's a living print. It's a living document. This time we're voting on it. This time we're supporting it. I am. But the thing is, it's a living document that can change, and it can change over years. This is my third, 2030, 40, and 50. It's embarrassing, but it's changed, and it's changed for the good. And there's some things that might not be good in it. But at the end of the day, does not mean that this plan is what's going to happen. So we're taking in, just as Mayor Wood said, and he said a lot, we're taking into account.
I have that issue sometimes.
But we're taking into account of everything we can and every possible nook and cranny. I mean, we're trying to turn over every rock we can to be as proactive and smart as the process. You guys choose Tempe just like we all choose Tempe. I grew up here. I enjoyed the ASU games. I enjoyed the things that happened in downtown. I enjoyed the schools I grew up in, the people I met, the diversity I met. That's why I chose Tempe. It is different than any other city in the valley, in the region, in this side of the Mississippi, in my opinion. We're doing things unique. I want to still rise to the occasion to do those things unique. I still want to rise to the occasion for you guys to have those opportunities to do those unique things. You guys are going to build that opportunity, not us. We're going to be long gone. You know, but the thing is, you also got to remember there's balance. Because we had some of the older residents, myself, you know, preserving and having those things. So you have to balance those things. I'm getting out of the fire department. I got younger crews that are coming in that are thinking different. And it's going to be their department pretty soon. The thing is, though, hopefully we're leaving a plate so that they can take it on and build and diversify that plate. It's the same thing with this city. It's the same thing with us. So having that opportunity to really get engaged, I'm so proud that you guys stepped up and came down here at nearly 9 o'clock at night, listened to all the conversations. But this is really important for us to get it right as best we can. So I just want to tell you thank you, and I'm very proud of you guys, and we'll be voting in support.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Anyone else? Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank staff, particularly Jeff and his team. 40 meetings is, I think, a record for how many meetings we met with the community. When I first got on council, I really pushed for neighborhood inclusion, and that's what you guys did. And we weren't doing that before. And I'm just really happy that you did that, and you got feedback from all different stakeholders, like I said earlier. I mean, to include the amount of people that you met with is really impressive, and it really speaks to us listening to our community members and bringing their feedback back to us. So great job on that. Also, Mayor Woods did say everything already, pretty much that I was going to say. So I won't, it's getting late in the evening, I don't need to say anything else, but thank you, Mayor Woods, for covering all the bases.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Adams. Councilmember Chin and then Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. A few short remarks. I want to start by thanking staff. I asked Tanya to move that so I can see you. You've been steadfast in your efforts to include all interested stakeholders in the process. You've had countless meetings, hours and hours of meetings, endless questions, and you've been patient, and you've answered every question to many people's satisfaction. And I've heard feedback that people walked away with, okay, you know what? Staff is being very gracious in how they are treating my question. Jeff, Ryan, thank you for your leadership of your team. Shauna, I saw her earlier, thank you. I want to specifically call out Ambika and Jacob. Ambika, I have witnessed your extreme patience and thoroughness in addressing questions from many of the stakeholders. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I think that's very important. Jacob, your contributions helped make the plan approachable and understandable for people like me who don't live in that space day in and day out. But it was visual, I could understand it, and there were great reference points. So thank you for that. I also want to thank our community members. We had a lot of volunteers also that contributed to developing the plan and reviewing the plan. The community working group, the technical working group, and the DRC. All of these are stakeholders in our community who spent countless hours with staff also going over the plan and contributing and shaping. I also want to thank all of you. Yeah, it's hard, and thank you for sticking around after you spoke. Sometimes people leave. You know, this is a very important part of the process. It's a late night, but we all signed up for this. And this is an important part of the process for us to listen to you and for you to contribute. So please continue to do that. I grew up in Tempe. I've lived here nearly 50 years. And that was the culture that I learned about Tempe, that we participate, that we invite. The leadership when I was young taught me that. And I hope I'm extending that offer to all of you also. Please continue to stay involved. It's through collaborative and open discussion that we're establishing a consensus of how our community will welcome and make space for new residents and businesses for Tempe's future. We've listened to stakeholders, we've incorporated their feedback in the plan, and collectively, I think we've worked very hard for a pretty darn good general plan that we can work with. So much thanks and appreciation to everyone for all of the roles that you all play.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Councilmember Keating, then Councilmember Hodge.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologize for my tardiness. I'm actually at Chicago O'Hare Airport right now. So, I don't disparage any sort of long comments from my colleagues, because if they weren't, I might not be able to be here to explain my vote and ultimate support for the general plan. So, Mayor, you said, obviously everything you agreed with, about the layout of the city and the need for a variety of options and different things work for different people. But I think Councilmember Navarro made a great point as well, in that it's a living document, and it's a document that can always come back and be revised. And it doesn't mean it's the ultimate law of the land, just more of a guiding light to future growth, the development of the city, future housing options, future business options, and all those kind of things that come with it. This has been an exhaustive, long process, and I'm very proud of the city for the approach we take in those processes, right? 40 public meetings, 40 total meetings. Ryan and Jeff did a great job. I know Rosa did a lot of work on this too. It's just, anytime you have such a lengthy process, which involves so much public input and is participatory, and people can feel like they're part of the decisions that this body is making. So that's certainly very positive. I'll be supporting this for the reasons my colleagues have already said. The staff has put in so much time and effort into this, and it's changed over time from the first draft to what I think is a positive place. So I'm just happy that I did not expect to be able to vote on this tonight. So I'm happy to do so, even if it's from the central time zone. So Mayor, I will be voting yes on the general plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Keating. Next up, Councilmember Hodge, then Councilmember Garland.
Okay, and I promise I'm going to definitely be shorter than everybody else today. I mean, because we keep saying that, but we don't do it. I just want to thank everybody here. Thank you for your input. Thank you. Even if you don't believe that we are on your side or we agree with you, thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For our staff, thank you for all the hard work and due diligence. I mean, I've heard things. I've actually even had my students, and this is what makes me proud. My students in high school has taken effect on this and weighed in and actually wrote me and asked me about the 2050 plan. It is a working plan. If you feel like your voice wasn't heard, we have a commission coming. Please get involved in it. Thank you so much for everybody. I told you I was going to be short.
Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. Councilmember Garland.
I don't think I'm going to say I'm going to be short, but I'll try. I just want to say, the same thing everybody else said. Thank you so much for everybody's participation. When I got on council, I had talked about that I raised my 4 kids here in Tempe, and I want to continue to stay here. I have a grandson now who's a year and a half old, and I want to see, looking at this general plan, with all the different iterations that we have gone through, because our staff listened to our residents, there's been a lot of changes, but I like the change. I can see this. I can look at this 2050 plan and I can see a place where my grandson will be at 2050, be 28 years old or something. But I can see the future for him in this plan. And I think we wouldn't have come to this position on this plan with all the changes that were made if we didn't have such robust input from our residents and the time that it took our staff to put in there. So I just want to say thank you so much for that. There's never going to be a plan where 100% of the people in our community are going to absolutely love it. But I actually think we have a document where there's going to be enough things in here that there are going to be, the majority of the people in our community are going to like it and like to see what we can do with this in the future. I mean, we've got some great information about trying to make our character areas stronger. It has historic preservation. Our green codes, yes, the recommendations, but all that can get better. Our public art and cultural amenities. There are so many things in this plan that is going to make Tempe on that trajectory of continuing to be the best community around. And I just want to say again, thank you so much, everybody's input. I will be supporting this because I think we've done the right thing by listening to our residents and adjusting it to make it right for the majority of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garland. Once again, just wanted to note too that this item requires a 2/3 city council majority of vote, meaning 5 out of 7 members for approval. With that being said, I will look to my colleagues to see if there is a motion.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Navarro and seconded by Vice Mayor Adams. You know what I'll do here? Let me just do I'll do it like this. Please vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Keating?
Yes.
And that item passes unanimously 7-0. With that said, a special election is going to be held on March 12th, 2024 for the purpose of submitting the General Plan 2050 to the voters of Tempe for ratification. That brings us to item 9, current events, council announcements, and future agenda items. Council members, once again, can request that an agenda item also be added to a future council meeting during their allotted time, but in accordance with the open meeting law, there should be no discussion on that item other than to clarify the request. I'll call upon council members for their comments, and this evening I'm going to start with Councilmember Chin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very quickly, family programming is back at Tempe Center for the Arts, starting with this Saturday, August 26th, Justin Roberts and the Not Ready for Nap Time Players. And in September, another show. Tickets are available at tempecenterforthearts.com.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Next up, Councilmember Garland.
And I'm ready. I just want to remind everybody that we have a backstage pass tour. It's a little tours that I like to give around the community so you can get a chance to experience some of the buildings and developments that are going on around Tempe. We're going to get a tour of Clark Park, the community center. It's going to be Saturday, September 9th at 8 a.m. And if you can RSVP to us at tempe.gov/Garland, we will make sure that you guys get included in that. I hope you can come. It'll be a lot of fun. And the other one is, I just want to give a shout out to our sustainability department, Sustainability and Resilience Office. They distributed 48 energy kits containing LED bulbs, smart plugs, utility stipends, and other items to homeowners to help with lower their energy costs. The kits were distributed to community members of households, lower household incomes that have high heat vulnerability. I think it's one of those things that I just absolutely love, that we are doing what we can to try to help the other residents in our community, and I just love the fact that they did this. The home energy kits are a result of the climate justice agenda and the 22 climate action plan update. Community members from low-income neighborhoods shared that they have to choose between paying for electricity and other necessities because of the cost of cooling in their homes is too expensive. This pilot project will feed to the larger energy equity work that the SRO, which is the Sustainability and Resiliency Office, is planning to do across other areas in the city. So I just want to say again, I just want to give a shout out to this department. They've just done an amazing job and continue to really look out for the people in our community. If you want more information, you can do tempe.gov/sustainabletempe, or you can reach out to Councilmember Chin or Vice Mayor Adams, who are on the Sustainability Committee. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, Councilmember Hodge.
Okay, first off, I want to say thank you for my shadow. Her name is Victoria. She sat through a whole day on council. So just thank you for that. I mean, and sat through 3 hours. 4 hours. Congratulations. Thank you. You're welcome. Also, I know that Councilmember Garland has hers on September, so on the same day, September 9th, so you travel from one straight over to Breakfast with Burdetta after you leave the wonderful tour she's gonna give you. And then we'll have a chance to have a fire chat with our one and only right here, our city manager. And guess what? You get to spend some time with me. It's Breakfast with Burdetta and my birthday. So we're gonna get out here. I want everybody, I got cake, I can't have no alcohol, but I'll have pretend alcohol there. So we can come out and have a good party together. So come on out and enjoy me on my birthday.
You should have ended with that one. You are going to follow that.
I know, nothing serious now. Also, Councilmember Keating and myself, we have a meeting on August 28th at 12 o'clock. So come on out and show the road show, because you know what? We were talking about Tempe business. It's about time to listen to the Tempe businesses. So come on out there at 12 o'clock. If you don't want to come in person, you can come online. Come on now. We know Tempe. We know you love it. Come on out. So that's Monday. So that's coming up soon. And I just want to thank everybody, Councilmember Garland and Councilmember Barr, who put it all together, even though he was ill. I just want to say thank you for it. I mean, our neighborhoods, y'all came out, you were in throughs. I just want to say, we want to do more of these. It really helps out with our neighborhoods, our kids, our families, and learning about opioids. So thank you so much for being there. And last but not least, I got a chance to go and give out some free bikes on Saturday. I mean, it was just phenomenal. We gave out 4 bikes to our students. I mean, we have our wonderful police department there, and our neighborhoods got together and actually did that. So it was just enjoyable time, and I really wanted one of those bikes, but my name wasn't called, so thank you. All right, and that's it. Thank you so much for everybody staying so long tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick piggyback on Councilmember Berdetta's announcement of our upcoming committee meeting. That's actually going to be a really cool one. So if you can come by or watch it online, we'll be recognizing some Tempe Works graduates and just kind of celebrating them and their accomplishments. So I'm pretty excited about that, and that'll definitely be a fun meeting to come back to here in a couple days. Thanks, Mayor.
I saved that for you. That's why I didn't even mention it.
I appreciate it, Burdetta.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Keating. Next up, Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, since we're talking about housing, we're talking about the 2050 plan. I'm going to get a little dive deeper into the housing topic. So starting every second Wednesday of each month till December, starting on September 13th, we're going to talk about various housing issues, from affordable to market rate to group homes, everything we can. The first meeting is going to be more of a general overview, kind of get your opinions, what you guys want to hear, and then meetings after that, we'll kind of dive into those topics, try to bring in some other experts to talk about some things and just kind of some do's, don'ts, and what we can and can't do and all the good stuff that goes along with it. Because as we know, we try to strive to have what we can as a good housing stock and a variety of it. How do we achieve it? Some of the goals, some of the struggles, everything about that. So if you can, every second Wednesday of the month down at the library, it's going to be downstairs at the Ironwood Room. Come on and join us. We try to spend an hour. I like to keep it that tight, respect your guys' time, but I think it'll be a good conversation, and we'll have some good guests on that. And then the last thing is it's college football. I'm going to be out in San Diego. My son's team, Ohio Bobcats, are going to play San Diego State. I'd put a little wager on it. It's a tight wage, but it's going to be a good game. Fox Sports 1, check it out.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. And last but certainly not least, Vice Mayor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief announcement. First of all, I want to say welcome back, ASU students. So school has started, and we're excited to see them all back and all their positive energy they bring to our community. So I'm excited about that. And we also have the new striping down at Tempe Town Lake. So we have yellow striping so you can tell which way to go, so we don't have as many accidents. So all you ASU students and our community members, come on down to the lake and check out the new lanes. And finally, I want to thank engineering and transportation for helping with that project and letting me do some striping. That was really cool, and it was great to see all the guys out there. So thanks to our public work employees also. Thank you, Chili.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Adams. I don't have any comments this evening. No, Councilmember Hodge would say you already used up all your time, Mayor, so. See, it's like the last battle rap scene at 8 Mile. Got to take it away from her before she even has a chance to use it against me. Next thing, item number 10, public appearances. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to come forward and address the council this evening? If so, please get my attention. All right, seeing none, that brings us to item number 11, adjournment. The next regular city council meeting is scheduled for September 7th, 2023. We are adjourned. Have a good evening.